Chapter 1420. In the past 6 months, Qin Feng had made several deductions, but the results were almost the same each time. Qin Feng's heart sank every time he made a deduction. It would be fine if it was just a connate universe great Tao. Space-type experts were rare to begin with. According to Qin Feng's knowledge, there were basically no space-type great emperors in the Spirit Sea realm. However, apart from the connate universe great Tao, there were many postnatal great Tao. Postnatal great Taos could even be perfected in an extremely short period of time, and all of them would appear. This meant that experts who cultivated connate great Taos would not be able to prove their Tao in a short period of time, but those who cultivated postnatal great Taos would have no problem. In fact, postnatal great gods would appear one after another in a short period of time. This was quite fatal. Postnatal great gods were rank 16 great gods, and their strength was far from what great emperors could compare to. Although primordial Xingqian school was the overlord of the Spirit Sea realm, once a postnatal great god appeared, they would have to obediently give up their position and tuck their tails between their legs. Otherwise, they would be reduced to dust under the great god's might. Qin Feng was sure that no matter which sect or force the postnatal great god came from, they would not let go of the primordial Xingqian school, which was at its peak. The reason was simple. Firstly, primordial Xingqian school controlled a large territory, especially since it was the overlord of the Spirit Sea realm. Of course, the most important reason was that primordial Xingqian school had no backing. Primordial Xingqian school originally had the Star God system as its backing. However, after the Star God system's master, the Star Master God, had fallen into the Void Universe, primordial Xingqian school had no backing at all. Unlike the other forces of the 10 great divine sects, the Creation sect, Emperor Shi sect, Battle God sect, 5 Seas Dragon tribe, True Martial sect, Primordial Netherworld path, and Primordial Evil path all had powerful backing. Even if a postnatal great god was born locally, they would not dare to oppress them too much. Over the past 6 months, Qin Feng's sense of urgency grew stronger by the day. Being in the creator space, he could use the powerful ability of the creator space to easily sense the world. He could clearly sense the changes in the laws of heaven and earth in the Spirit Sea realm. The Spirit Sea realm's advancement would take place in these 10 years. 3 years had already passed, and in at most 4 or 5 years, the Spirit Sea realm would complete its final advancement and give birth to the complete laws of the myriad realms. Qin Feng was already thinking of a way out. At least for now, his path in the Spirit Sea realm had already been cut off. Since that was the case, he could only settle for the next best thing. At the very least, he could bring some of the benefits he obtained from the Spirit Sea realm into the creator space and leave. That's right, it was to take some of Primordial Xingqian School's friends, some of Primordial Xingqian School's wealth, and even the world origin force of the Spirit Sea realm into the depths of the endless void. Learn from those sovereigns who had limitless space, make a quick buck and leave. In fact, they could even break out of the current situation and go even further. They could wreak havoc in the Spirit Sea realm and plunder as many benefits as they could. However, this was the last resort. A newly advanced upper realm of the 33 heavens contained too many benefits. If they could control it, not to mention a 16th level creator god, even a 17th level chaos overgod would have a foundation. He had worked so hard to offend so many sects and god systems, and all of this was going to benefit other sovereigns. Qin Feng was furious and irritated. How could a few words explain it? Qin Feng did not want to take this path unless it was absolutely necessary. Damn it, man proposes, God disposes. In the creator space, Qin Feng sat cross-legged beside the origin force pool. His face was full of helplessness and a bitter smile. He had calculated all the heavenly secrets, including the reactions of the various sects and god systems, but he did not expect that the Spirit Sea realm would not give birth to the connate creation Great Tao. He was more aggrieved. He could clearly touch the connate creation Great Tao, but he was limited by the Great Tao and could not break through to the 16th level. Do I really have to be like the other God Emperors? Wandering the void and trying my luck? Qin Feng's face was gloomy. After the end of an era, most of the ordinary Emperor gods would either leave their world or head to the Origin God world to join a god system in the Origin God world. Or they would enter the endless void and start a wandering life, looking for the upper realm of the 33 heavens that was suddenly born like the Spirit Sea realm. If they were lucky and found an upper realm that happened to have an empty Great Tao seat, they would be able to converge. If they were unlucky, it should be known that the endless void was not the wilderness. Instead, it was filled with inexplicable dangers and countless danger zones. Even overgods could die if they left the protection of the void multiverse. Actually, Qin Feng had another place to go, and that was the Chaos Land. However, the Chaos Land was under the control of Tao ancestor Empress Hua and was under constant surveillance. There was also a Tao ancestor scheming against him, and his life was in danger. How could Qin Feng be willing? What an unlucky guy! At this moment, in the Lord God space, above the primal chaos continent, beside the seven-colored divine spring, under the spiritual root of a huge peach tree, on the swing, the pink-clothed demoness giggled. No one understood Qin Feng's frustration and anger better than the demoness at this moment. The witch was gloating over his misfortune. Apart from gloating, she also felt a sense of regret. The witch knew that the secret of the Spirit Sea realm was not that simple. There were many mysterious things that even she could not understand. It was impossible for the Spirit Sea realm to advance suddenly for no reason. In the past few years, many overgods had gathered in the outer space of the Soul Sea realm, all for the sake of that tremendous secret. What a pity! I thought I could rely on this lad to deal with those guys. Now, it seems like there's no hope. The witch's eyes flashed with a strange light as she smiled. In fact, from the demoness point of view, if Qin Feng could safely stay in the Soul Sea realm for tens of thousands of years, or even hundreds of thousands of years, and wait for several epochs to pass, then, with the innate creation Great Tao being born in the Spirit Sea realm, Qin Feng's chances of Tao fusing should be relatively high, much higher than the hidden celestial emperors in the Spirit Sea realm. Although those god emperors were very strong, they were actually still a distance away from Qin Feng. However, the god emperors hidden in the depths of the endless void were much luckier than Qin Feng. Most of them cultivated the post-celestial Great Tao. Although the postnatal Great Tao was inferior to the connate Great Tao, it was superior in terms of perfection. For any world that ascended to the upper realms of the 33 heavens, the first path to birth would be the Hotian Great Taos, followed by the Xiantian Great Taos. Right at this moment, the demoness expression changed as she looked over. In the center of the creator space, a faint golden light flashed. Qin Feng casually grabbed the golden light, and countless information appeared in his mind. When he finished reading it, Qin Feng's eyes lit up. The turning point was here. With a flash, Qin Feng's figure disappeared from the spot. Chapter 1421. The Eldritch Wilderness Legion has discovered a new void universe. At this moment, Qin Feng's heart couldn't help but tremble. Of course, he knew what this meant. It meant that he still had a choice. He activated the Chief God Space and locked onto the source of the news. Soon, Qin Feng's figure appeared in a huge Buddhist kingdom. Ever since he appeared in the Buddhist kingdom, Qin Feng once again felt a pressure that was as heavy as Mount Tai. It was different from the empty feeling in the Spirit Sea realm. The Eldritch Wilderness Great Tao was complete, and new connate Great Taos were being born. In the Eldritch Wilderness, he only felt like a mortal with some strength. It was not like the Spirit Sea realm, where he was almost omniscient. Qin Feng was not used to it. He frowned and adjusted his state of mind. Around him, the boundless Buddhist kingdom was surrounded by countless auspicious clouds. Under the rainbow divine light, there were countless giant clams, chalcedony, crystals, corals, amber, pearls, and musk. There were many pure Bodhi trees and 6 pure bamboos. In the huge lake, there were many green lotuses swaying gently. Countless bodhisattvas and believers were chanting sutras on them. In the center, there was a huge Buddha golden body sitting cross-legged, explaining Buddhism to the masses. Countless Buddhist disciples from the Aparagodania continent came to listen. Rays of Buddhist light turned into golden lotuses, and Sanskrit chants resounded through the heavens. Many bodhisattvas were intoxicated. From time to time, there would be people who would gain enlightenment and release Sarira origin light, improving their cultivation. There were also people who were lucky enough to break through the life and death mystic light and condense an essence soul Sarira. They broke through the door of life and death and became another Arhat in the Buddhist kingdom. This was the Buddhist kingdom of the boundless green lotus fortune Tathagata. It was also where Qin Feng stayed in the Buddhist sect. This huge Buddhist kingdom was extremely close to the center of the 11 Buddhist kingdoms in the 10-directional eternal sand world. It was where the Taoist temples of the 11 Buddhist lords were. Obviously, the closer the Taoist temples of the 11 Buddhist lords were to the top, the higher their status in the Buddhist sect. Qin Feng's appearance was so quiet that no one was alerted. Qin Feng looked down from below. He could see countless Buddhist kingdoms and heavenly caves filled with Buddhist light. Rainbow-colored auspicious clouds seemed to fill the boundless sky. Beneath his feet were many great worlds and small worlds, where countless living beings lived. These were the sources of Buddhas, bodhisattvas, and believers. At every moment, boundless great worlds and small worlds were being born and destroyed. Above them was the Namo Sarira Buddha Lord, where Sun Wukong's Buddhist kingdom was located. The Buddhist kingdom of the monkey was different from other Buddhas and bodhisattvas. There weren't many bodhisattvas and bhikkhu monks there. Instead, there were more monkeys there. It was more like a boundless paradise where Sun Wukong and a group of monkeys were having fun. This Nanwu Sarira Buddha Lord did not look like a majestic future Buddha. He looked more like a mountain king. The huge Buddhist kingdom was directly connected to the eternal sands thoughtless tranquil world. It was the dojo of the mother of all Buddhas, the innate Nirvana Buddha Lord. Qin Feng only took a glance before withdrawing his gaze. The innate Buddha Lord's dojo was so mysterious that ordinary peak half-step golden immortals would not be able to withstand the majestic suppression just by looking at it. The virtuous Buddha Lord's dojo. Qin Feng thought about the source of the information. His eyes flashed as he locked onto a huge Buddhist kingdom filled with the aura of heaven and earth. His figure flashed into it. When he entered, Qin Feng also discovered that there were some future Buddhas and half-step golden immortals flying towards the dojos of the various Buddha Lord. They were either in front or behind. Outside the Xianhuang Buddhist kingdom, where the virtuous Buddha Lord was located, Qin Feng saw Old Pig, Old Sand, and Little White Dragon flying towards the Xianhuang Buddhist kingdom. They were Mother of Wood Golden Lotus Buddha, Golden Light Lord Buddha, and Guangli Dragon Ancestor Buddha. The 3 of them smiled at Qin Feng. A moment later, the 4 of them appeared outside the Xianhuang dojo. An arrogant figure was already waiting there. He was wearing a shiny golden armor and a golden crown on his head. He held the golden cudgel in his hand and wore the cloud stepping shoes. The rich Buddhist light on his body covered the sky. It was Namo Relic Lord Buddha. Let's go. The monk is waiting for you. The monkey glanced at the 4 of them. Their figures flashed and appeared at the entrance of a huge Buddhist temple. Immeasurable Merit Hall. As soon as they entered the Buddhist temple, the 5 of them saw the Buddha Lord of immeasurable merit. The Buddha Lord of immeasurable merit did not have the demeanor of a Buddha at this moment. He was just like an ordinary, fair-skinned monk in the temple. However, when he raised his head, Qin Feng, the monkey, and the others felt an extremely grand aura. It was as if the world was overturning and the world was shaking. When they saw him, it was as if they saw the innate Xianhuang merit great Tao. However, that aura quickly disappeared in an instant. I've called you here this time because it's about Tao attainment. The Buddha Lord went straight to the point as his eyes fell on Qin Feng and the others. No matter what this poor monk thinks, you've escorted this poor monk all the way to the west. In essence, you've already left the mark of this poor monk's sect. You belong to this poor monk's future Buddha. The Buddha Lord paused slightly and glanced at the monkey, who was curling his lips. Even if Namo Relic Lord Buddha is the mother of all Buddhas, you can't deny it. As soon as he said that, Qin Feng, Old Pig, Old Sand, and Little White Dragon looked at each other and smiled slightly. In fact, although the Buddhist sect had 11 Buddha Lords, it appeared to be unusually powerful. However, in reality, like the 11 Tao ancestors of the Taoist sect, they were also divided into factions. Qin Feng, Old Pig, Old Sand, and Little White Dragon could be considered the direct descendants of the Buddha Lord. The monkey was different. He could be said to be on the side of the innate Nirvana Buddha Lord and also on the side of the Buddha Lord. Fortunately, there was no discord between the innate Nirvana Buddha Lord and the Buddha Lord, so the monkey could be at ease. However, it was clear that not all Buddha Lords had a harmonious relationship with each other. A few brothers living in a shabby thatched hut might fight over land and house, resulting in discord. The Buddhist sect had a large family and a lot of businesses, especially when the Buddhist sect's fate was related to the cultivation of the 11 Buddha Lords. Naturally, there were also conflicts of interest. However, the 11 Buddha Lords were more distinct than the Taoist sect. The 11 Tao ancestors were much more discreet and most of their conflicts were still controllable. The Buddha Lord looked indifferent. You should have heard the news. The vanguard army of the Eldritch world conquering various worlds has discovered an unfamiliar void universe. At the same time, according to the information we received, that void universe is not weaker than our Eldritch world and also has the 4-9 connate great Das. Qin Feng and the other 4 shuddered and their breathing quickened. Even though the monkey had already received the news, he could not help but feel agitated. It was like a glimpse of hope at the end of the tunnel. In fact, many future Buddhas and half-step golden immortals in the Eldritch world were already well aware. Although the Eldritch world had the 4-9 connate great Daos and many postnatal great Daos, there were still some great Daos that had yet to give birth to the corresponding Tao ancestors. However, in reality, it was difficult for anyone to attain Tao. Although the 4-9 great Daos were vacant, most of them had already been targeted by the connate and postnatal Tao ancestors. It was almost impossible for any future Buddha to attain Tao as a half-step golden immortal. The Buddha Lord could attain Tao for 2 reasons. Firstly, he had the protection of the 10 Buddhas in the Thunder Temple of the Buddhist sect. Secondly, the connate merit great Tao was not in the eyes of the connate and postnatal Tao ancestors. Otherwise, if there was a conflict of great Daos, not only would the Taoist ancestor of the celestial sect not tolerate it, but several Buddhist ancestors would also take action to suppress it. Chapter 1422. Don't be too happy. Although the void universe has the 4-9 connate great Daos, it has already given birth to 6 connate Tao ancestors. Virtuous Buddha Lords' indifferent voice rang out, waking the 5 of them from their great surprise. What? 6 connate Tao ancestors have already been born? The 5 of them frowned. Qin Feng was secretly shocked. His eyebrows also tightened. The existence of a Tao ancestor in a world was completely different. Seeing their expressions, Merit Buddha Lord smiled faintly. You don't have to worry. Since the primordial void universe is already at our doorstep, there's no reason for us to let it go. Those connate Tao ancestors will naturally be taught by us Tao ancestors. When the time comes, we'll cast spells to suppress the 6 connate Tao ancestors born in the local universe. However, the primordial void universe hasn't merged into the untainted land, so it won't allow us Tao ancestors to enter. This will give you future Buddhas, half-step golden immortals, a chance. Now that the Buddhist sect, dark sect, demon sect, sorcerer tribe, and other Tao ancestors have finished their discussion, we'll ask Tao ancestor Hong Jun to cast spells. Each Tao ancestor has 2 places to send 2 disciples to enter the primordial void universe to break through to the Tao reunion realm. As a new Khanate Tao ancestor of the Buddhist sect, I naturally have 2 places. Who's willing to enter? Master, may I ask if only the future Buddha at the peak of the 4th step, half-step golden immortal, can enter? Old Pig was the first to raise his head and ask. Merit Buddha Lord smiled faintly. It's best if it's the peak of the 4th step. In my opinion, even if the level 17 Tao ancestors of the untainted land take action, I'm afraid they can only suppress the 6 Tao ancestors in the primordial void universe for 300 years. Old Sand said. In other words, they must attain Tao in the primordial void universe within 300 years. Otherwise, their lives will be in danger. You can say that to a certain extent. Merit Buddha Lord glanced at Qin Feng and the monkey. This time, not only the peak 4th step half-step golden immortals will enter the primordial void great universe, I'm afraid some of the innate Tao ancestors will also send their clones. I've just advanced to the next level. Among the Khanate Tao ancestors, I'm the least qualified one. I didn't get the news before. It wasn't until a few years ago that I was informed by the Gautama Buddha. If I'm not wrong, they may have gotten the news 1,000 years ago and have been preparing for it. It's a pity that I've just merged with my Tao, so I didn't have time to refine a doppelganger. If I could enter that world and merge with my doppelganger, regardless of whether I merged with my original Tao seed or the opposite one, it would be greatly beneficial. The white monk had a look of pity on his face. He still wanted to compete with the Tao ancestors. Qin Feng's face darkened. Those Khanate and postnatal Tao ancestors had been immersed in the great Tao for a long time. Sending an avatar into the great Tao and regaining control over it was undoubtedly much easier than the ordinary future Buddha and half-step golden immortals. In heaven and earth, Tao ancestor Empress Hua was in charge of Khanate creation. It was certain that Tao ancestor Empress Hua would send an avatar into the primordial void universe. There might be other Tao ancestors and Gautama Buddhas who wanted to merge with the opposite Khanate creation Tao seed, or postnatal Tao ancestors who wanted to upgrade to Khanate creation. Virtuous Buddha Lord continued. Of course, apart from those Tao ancestors and Gautama Buddhas who are full of malice, you'll also have to face the local experts of the primordial void universe. Although the number of experts in that void universe is not as many as in our primitive universe, it's not much inferior. Similarly, there are many experts who have reached the peak of half-step golden immortal realm. Oh, by the way, that universe calls the entire realm the heaven-defying level. The monk glanced at the expressions of Qin Feng and the other 4. He looked indifferent. Think about it carefully. There's still half a month before Tao ancestor Hong Jun opens the gate of heaven and earth. You have plenty of time to think about it. Dressed in a moon-white monk robe, the monk's voice disappeared without a trace. I give up. The 5 of them looked at each other. Little White Dragon was the first to speak. He spread his hands and shrugged his shoulders. I've just advanced to the Buddha realm. I'm still far away from the future Buddha. I give up too. The unlucky Laosha was silent for a moment before he spoke. It's too dangerous there. Moreover, the poison great Tao in that universe has yet to give birth to a Tao ancestor. I don't want to risk my life to fight for it. Laosha clapped his hands and chuckled. Old Pig's gaze fell on Qin Feng and the monkey. His expression flickered. Forget it. I'll take you too. I've just reached the 3rd step. I'm not as crazy as you 2 who have reached the complete 4th step. Applause sounded. The moon-white monk robe appeared again. Virtuous Buddha Lord laughed heartily. That's great. So the 2 of you under my command will head to the primordial void universe this time? Kid, are you going or not? The monkey looked at Qin Feng with sparkling eyes. Of course I'm going. Qin Feng sneered. So what if he competed with the Tao ancestors? How could he, Qin Feng, be afraid? Monk, it's just the two of us then. The monkey looked at Tang Sanzang indifferently. 10 days later, in front of the great Thunderclap Temple, many bodhisattvas and Buddhas were looking at the huge light gate that had suddenly appeared in the void. There seemed to be a huge fluctuation in the depths of the light gate, accompanied by a few angry and unwilling roars. A huge explosion seemed to have penetrated the various worlds. Several spiritual treasures flickered vaguely. They were either taiji diagrams, rui scepters, swords, tree branches, golden lotuses, and other colorful treasures. After a while, the huge fluctuation slowly subsided. 3 days later, a faint voice sounded as if it had come from the primordial void universe. Go in. Under the light gate, 22 future Buddhas with extremely hidden auras entered the huge light gate in a single file. Some of them looked cold, some of them sneered, some of them holy, and some of them benevolent. Qin Feng and the monkey's expressions changed slightly. They blended into the team and entered the light gate between the two worlds, heading toward the primordial void universe. There were many avatars of the Buddhas among them. At the same time, a light gate appeared above the Moon Palace. 2 peak half-step golden immortals were waiting. 2 peak half-step golden immortals. One of them had a cold face and was wearing a white robe and a jade crown. If Qin Feng were here, he would definitely recognize this demon saint. It was the jade-toed demon saint. The other one was glowing with red light. He was wearing a red robe and had white hair. Countless 4-colored threads curled around him. He wrapped himself up like a red envelope, and a crescent moon could be faintly seen between his eyebrows. If the immortals of the heavenly court were here, they would definitely recognize him. He was the Moon Elder who was in charge of marriage. He lived in seclusion in the lunar star and had always kept a low profile. No one would have thought that he was a peak half-step golden immortal. When the two of them saw that the light gate had calmed down, they entered it in a flash. At the same time, there was also a light gate in front of the Jade Pure Palace on Kunlun Mountain. 6 figures, including Yang Jian and Neza, exuded the aura of peak half-step golden immortals, entered the gate amidst the colorful immortal light. Jade-toed demon saint, Moon Elder, Yun Zhongzi, Yu Ding, Yang Jian, Neza, and the avatars of the East Pole and the South Pole Tao ancestors. How lively! At this moment, 2 Tao ancestors stood side by side in front of the Shangqing Palace above the East Sea. One of the Tao ancestors looked at the few disciples of the Jie sect. Zhao Gongming, Yin Shao, are you ready? Chapter 1423. Apart from Yang Jian and Yu Ding, there's nothing to fear from the rest of the Jade Clear lineage. On Golden Turtle Island, an unusually sloppy middle-aged man smiled faintly. There was a large black gourd hanging from its waist. Its beard was unkempt and it looked lazy. Yang Jian and Yu Ding are really amazing. They can be said to be the gods of war on the battlefield. Many 4th-step, half-step golden immortals have died in their hand. Yang Jian's cultivation method is said to be able to kill Tao ancestors. At the side, a beautiful woman in golden clothes had a slightly fearful look on her face. Her posture was delicate and charming, and there was a rare kind of nobility and elegance. The goddess of golden spirit was one of the 4 goddesses of the Supreme Pure Palace in the past. However, of the 4 Holy Mothers, only 2 were left. The Holy Mother of Turtle Spirit and the Holy Mother of Fire Spirit had perished during the ancient investiture of the gods. The Holy Mother of Wudong had already reached Tao fusing and was known as Tao Ancestor Beiyu. She had a noble status and was one of the 2 Tao ancestors of the Shangqing Palace. Second only to numinous treasure Tao Ancestor. There's also that lunatic from the Fiend sect, Taoist Qin Yi, the Witch sect, the Demon Court, and the Supreme Purity Palace. Those old antiques have all appeared. The noble face of the goddess of golden spirit was filled with helplessness. There was some hesitation in her eyes. Was it the right choice to enter the immemorial void universe? This senior apprentice sister has been in charge of the internal affairs of Prime Pure Palace all these years. In the end, she still lacks some decisiveness? At the side, Consort Yunshao shook her head inwardly. Baby June, are you ready? Daofather Northpeak's gaze fell upon the last of the four. This was a Taoist with a head full of white hair. He was dressed in a Taoist robe, and his face was lacking in facial features. Zhang Ju Bao. Everyone looked at the young white-haired Taoist with a strange look in their eyes. Daofather Northpeak was one of the two most noble Daofathers of the High Purity Palace. His status was exalted, but he had never taken on a disciple before. After he became a deity, he closed the palace doors, even if it was just to prove his Tao. 1,000 years ago, this young white-haired Taoist appeared. This young white-haired Taoist came from one of the many lower realms in the great desolate universe. He called himself Crazy Taoist 3. Taoist 3 Fook was truly an astounding figure. In just 1,000 years, he'd gone from a true immortal to a meteoric rise, becoming a Tao Lord in just 100 years. Another 500 years later, he reached the fourth step of the half-step golden immortal realm. 300 years ago, he had entered the extraterritorial battlefield alone. He had made a name for himself. It was even to the extent that Tao ancestors of the Outer Realm had attacked him numerous times, yet they were unable to kill him. Instead, he had repeatedly escaped, and the more he fought, the stronger he became. If one learns of the Tao in the morning, one can die in the evening without regret. The young, white-haired Taoist took half a step backwards, then bowed deeply towards Daofather Northpeak. His eyes were cold, self-restraint, and indomitable. If that's the case, then let's move out. Daofather Northpeak nodded. At the same time, in the Heavenly Court, the Tai Ching Palace, the Golden Turtle Island, the Underworld, the Demon Court of the North Continent, the Demon Sect, and one or two extremely secretive places, the light gates of the two realms appeared. In the primitive Great Universe, some of the top half-step golden immortals and the Tao ancestors' avatars entered the immemorial void Great Universe almost one after another. The immemorial void Great Cosmos was indeed a vast and boundless universe. At the very least, it far surpassed the immemorial divine tree realm and the land of the galaxy that Qin Feng had seen. This incomparably huge universe was very strange. It looked like the primordial world had just opened, and the primordial world had yet to be formed. Endless primordial aura surrounded it. However, the spiritual qi was quite abundant, much more abundant than in the primitive Great Universe. There were also extremely precious primordial spiritual qi and primordial chaos vital qi remaining. In the heaven and earth, the great Tao was faintly discernible, and it looked like it had just been opened. No, it should be the arrival of the immeasurable calamity, and the heaven and earth have just been opened. Qin Feng corrected his guess in his heart. In addition to the rich primordial chaos vital qi, there was clearly the aura of the calamity after the remnant darkness. The darkness was receding layer by layer, and there were also some ancient remnants that could not dissipate. This was clearly the result of the destruction of the heaven and earth and the rebirth of the Great War. He felt slightly uncomfortable. There was a boundless pressure pressing down on him from the void, repelling, and even wanting to devour and tear him apart. His strength had been suppressed to less than 10%. After all, he was an outsider, and this heaven and earth were full of malice towards him. Rumble! There seemed to be rolling thunder clouds gathering in the sky, turning into the eyes of the heavens that stared at Qin Feng. At this moment, the 22 future Buddhas and Tao ancestor avatars that had entered together with him were completely scattered when they entered the void of this great universe. However, this was also good. Even though they were from the same sect, they would not hold back in the face of a battle of the great Tao. Next is to convert my cultivation. In the shortest time possible, I have to adjust my cultivation into the most suitable form for the other world, and then quickly break through to the Dao integration realm. Qin Feng thought to himself. He looked at the eyes of the heavens that were full of malice above his head. He knew very well that he did not have much time left. Those Dao ancestors and Buddhist ancestors would break through to the Dao integration realm in a short time. Fortunately, Qin Feng had traversed through many great worlds, and he had an advantage in adjusting himself to the great universe that ordinary future Buddhas and half-step golden immortals did not have. Ordinary future Buddhas and half-step golden immortals would need decades or even centuries to adjust. Even those Dao ancestors and Buddhist ancestors would need at least a decade. However, he only needed a few years or even half a year. His figure flashed, and he scanned his surroundings. His aura flashed, and he disappeared from the spot. Boom! Even though Qin Feng had left, the area was still filled with thunder and lightning for a few days. Strange phenomena appeared, and countless wild beasts, ferocious beasts, and spirit beasts rushed madly into the depths of the mountain range. They were risking their lives. Under the mountain range, countless wild beasts, ferocious beasts, and spirit beasts were killed, and blood flowed like a river. However, those wild beasts, ferocious beasts, and spirit beasts seemed to have gone mad. Whether they had spiritual intelligence or not, they rushed madly up the mountain range. A few days later, a figure flew down like a stream of light and landed on the divine mountain that Qin Feng had once stood on. He turned into a pitch-black demonic shadow, towering and huge, as if he was on the same level as the sky. His aura was so strong that it seemed to be able to shake heaven and earth. This was an earth-shattering peerless expert. He closed his eyes and sensed slightly. The next moment, his sword eyes opened, and a trace of dark and boundless demonic chi floated. Strange, there was clearly the aura of an extraterrestrial expert here. Why did it suddenly disappear? Could it be that he has washed away his extraterrestrial aura and hidden himself? The demonic shadow's expression was fierce, and his demonic eyes looked around. His eyebrows were like dark clouds, and his expression was solemn. Half a day ago, he could clearly sense the thunder and heavenly might here, as well as the wild beasts' rampage. That wisp of extraterrestrial aura was like a candle, and there was no way to escape. He believed that there was definitely an extraterrestrial expert hiding within a radius of 10,000 miles. Moreover, it was a very powerful extraterrestrial expert. A trace of fierceness flashed across his eyes. Just as he was about to use a peerless divine ability to shatter this area, a black light flew over from the horizon and quickly turned into a stream of light in the void. An angry and hurried voice flew out from the black light. Junior brother Heavenly Demon, the 7 Absolute Fairy and Chen Nan, have just discovered more than 10 extremely powerful extraterrestrial experts. They are fighting fiercely. Come quickly and kill those extraterrestrial experts. Chapter 1424. Archean Continent 3 months later. Great Qin. Xianyang City, Qin Mansion. Qin Mansion had appeared half a year ago. It was said that they were big merchants from the Yen Kingdom in the north. Half a year ago, after donating a large sum of money to the county governor, they bought a mansion in Xianyang City and settled down. Speaking of the Qin family, all the people in Xianyang City gave them a thumbs up. On the 1st and 15th day of every month, Qin Mansion would set up porridge stalls in Xianyang City. It could be said that they had saved countless refugees and disaster victims. Most importantly, they had built dozens of workshops within a few months. Not only did they teach all kinds of skills free of charge, but they also created jobs for many refugees, giving them the capital to survive. In the wilderness outside the city, Qin Mansion had also bought tens of thousands of acres of fertile land. Now, there were thousands of people working for Qin Mansion. Now, Qin Mansion could be said to be the entire Qin capital of Xianyang City. From the great Qin king to the child beggars in the slums, everyone knew about Qin family's good deeds. It could be said that their merits were boundless. In Qin Mansion, there were countless servants and beautiful maids busy. Qin family was big and had many things to take care of. However, the majority of the beautiful maidservants were staring in the direction of the main residence. Currently, the Qin clan's manor lord had yet to take a wife or concubine. That manor lord was young and wealthy, handsome and wise, outstanding and elegant. If one could become the manor lord's wife or concubine, even if she were to become his personal maidservant, the entire Qin clan would benefit immensely. Qin, Yan, Qi, Zhao, Wei, Han, Chu, 7 big countries, and Wu, Yu, Lu, Wei, Chao, Chun, and many other small countries. Also, in the west of the Archean continent, there are elves, giant dragons, dwarves, and many other races. There are so many strange things. It doesn't seem like the beginning of the world. There is also the Heaven Realm. The Heaven Realm is divided into 2 extremes. Immortals in the east and gods in the west. There are even 6 peerless monarchs who have surpassed the heaven-defying realm. At this moment, in the garden, the mysterious mansion master of Xianyang City, Mansion Master Qin Feng, was mumbling. His eyes were hazy and sparkling. He smiled slightly. What did this have to do with him? At this moment, his aura had recovered to its peak. According to the Invasion trilogy, he hid his aura, earned merits, assimilated his true spirit, and changed his cultivation technique. The primordial void great cosmos rejection of him had basically disappeared. This was 3 months faster than he had expected. The reason was that this world was more tolerant than he had imagined. Not only was it tolerant of martial arts cultivation, but it was also very tolerant of immortal Tao, Western beliefs, and magic. However, from this point, it could be seen that the avatars of the Buddhist ancestor, the Tao ancestor, and the future Buddha would gradually transform their auras before long. He didn't have much time left. During these 3 months, there were a lot of news coming from different places. The news of the alien experts had spread across the entire ancient continent. From time to time, the Archean continent would send out the news of the foreign experts being killed. However, there were also extraterrestrial experts who started a massacre. Over the past few days, many gods and immortals from the celestial world had perished, and some experts from outside the realms had invaded the Western god world. Even Mountain Paradise had been shaken. The experts of this realm came out one after another. The legendary ancient Heaven Realm family, the Chun family, had made their move. There were also the Xiaolin Temple and the Zhantai ancient sacred ground from the Heaven Realm. The primordial 6 paths, the primordial chaos path, the destruction path, the heartless path, the passion path, the extermination path, the chaos path, the Heaven Realm, and even the 2nd and 3rd realms were joining the chaos. A great upheaval was brewing. In Qin Feng's eyes, the strength of this realm was actually not weak, especially the few ancient sovereign kings who had survived the great calamity. For example, the primordial taboo sovereign king Great God Dugubatian, Devil Lord, Ghost Lord, Ancestor Qin, Human King, and Qin Zhan were all top-notch experts. It was rumored that this realm had given birth to the heavenly Tao several times, but they were all slaughtered by the ancient kings. The heavenly Tao was a deformed existence born after the deformed evolution of the heavenly Tao. The strength of that existence even surpassed a 16th level Lord God and reached 17th level. The heavenly Tao had also been born in the primordial universe. Before Tao ancestor Hong Jun had attained Tao, he had spent a lot of effort to completely subdue the heavenly Tao. The fact that the ancient kings of this realm could slaughter the heavenly Tao like dogs was enough to show their ferocity. If the clones of Tao ancestors and Buddha ancestors encountered such existences, they would probably have a headache. The experts of this realm might not be comparable to the primordial universe in terms of miscellaneous arts, but in terms of killing techniques, even the Spirit Sea realm, which was the source of martial arts, could not compare to this realm. The only advantage they had was that the 6 primordial kings had already been trapped by the many Tao ancestors and Buddha ancestors in the primordial universe. But there are still many ancient kings outside, such as Chun Nan, the 7 absolute fairy, the heavenly dragon, the heavenly phoenix, the unparalleled king ancient war soul of the second realm, the ancient kings Chu Xiangyu, Songzan Debu, He Qi and Aizhong, and Ali De of the third realm, as well as the evil lord, the great demon, the heavenly demon, the moon goddess of the fourth realm, and the Buddha ancestor Xuanzang of the fifth realm. Sometimes Qin Feng would think of these experts. Apart from being fearful, there was no lack of schadenfreude. Qin Feng did not immediately take the final step, as he still needed to make the final adjustments to break through to the Tao integration stage in his best condition. Half a month later, a mighty divine light erupted from the great Qin's ancient capital, Xianyang, in the mortal realm. The myriad realms' resonance shook the myriad realms. Tao integration phenomenon, 3 realms resonance? Someone has begun the Tao integration? In the mortal realm, in a noble's residence in the kingdom of Qi's capital, Linzi, the 3 half-step golden immortals of the Shangqing Palace, Zhang Junbao, Zhao Gongming, and Yun Xiao, looked at each other in shock. The 3 of them still had heavy expressions on their faces. They had just died 2 months ago. Who is it? In a huge divine mountain, a young expert in white with cold brows and starry eyes swept his gaze in the direction of the great Qin Empire. He frowned slightly. Yang Jian looked puzzled. Yang Jian was not the only one who was puzzled. Most of the extraterrestrial experts found it hard to believe. Most of them had already died, and only a dozen or so had survived. However, even if they had survived, these dozen or so had only just learned how to conceal their auras, let alone fully integrate into this great universe. Who exactly is the Tao integration stage? Many extraterrestrial experts were puzzled. Heaven Realm, Zhongzhou City. Strange, it's actually someone I don't know who is advancing to the supreme heavenly Tao. Is it an old friend or an extraterrestrial expert? Many immortals gathered. Chen Nan frowned slightly as he looked at the mortal realm. His gaze seemed to see through the boundless void and landed on Xianyang City in the mortal realm. He had personally participated in the siege of the heavenly Tao. He knew all the famous experts in the mortal realm. In fact, he had personally brought back the 6 ancient sovereigns, Dugu Baitian, Fiend Lord, Ghost Lord, Ancestor Chen, Human King, and Chen Zhan. However, the expert in front of him who was breaking through did not seem to be an extraterrestrial expert. Those extraterrestrial experts had just entered the immemorial void great universe. It was impossible for them to integrate, transform, and break through so quickly within the short 3 months. Should we attack? On the side, the 7 absolute fairies' eyes flickered with 7-colored divine light. There seemed to be a mighty force that could destroy 10,000 worlds roaring. Chapter 1425. Someone broke through? In the deepest part of the primordial void universe, 6 towering figures looked in the direction of the human realm amidst the chaotic flow. The 6 ancient sovereigns looked indifferent. At the same time, opposite the 6 ancient experts, 6 beams of spiritual light appeared from 6 treasures that emitted spiritual light. They worked together to seal the chaos. The 6 treasures were a Taiji diagram, a jade Rui Qingping sword, a golden lotus, a tree branch, and a moon wheel. The 6 beams of light transformed into monks, Taoists, men, and women. Their massive auras were rather terrifying. He's the first to break through? The 6 figures all had strange expressions on their faces. It seems like our junior sister Empress has miscalculated this time. Taoist Kundi, who was holding the 7 Wonders tree, smiled faintly. Kundi, don't be happy too early. Tao integration is extremely difficult, especially Tao integration in another world. You have to be careful of losing everything. Numinous treasure Tao ancestor, who was wearing a Taoist robe and holding the extremely sharp Qingping sword, had a cold smile on his face. Rumble! At that moment, in the myriad worlds, billions of sectors, minor kiliocosms, void chaos, and dark stars, the resonance of the myriad worlds intensified. The boundless experts and sentient beings in this world seemed to hear an extremely grand and solemn song. It was like the dance of earth, water, wind, and fire. It was like the chimes of the four seasons of yin and yang. It was also like billions of sentient beings were praising from the bottom of their hearts. At that moment, a portion of the Tao ancestors and Buddhist ancestors' avatars, as well as many experts, had a change in expression. The resonance of the three realms and the descent of creation. Someone is breaking through the connate creation great Tao. Who is it? Is it Tao ancestor Empress Hua, the other Tao ancestors' avatars, or the green lotus creation Tathagata? At that moment, not only the experts from the other domain, but the experts from this world, such as Chun Nan, Seven Absolute Fairy, Fiend Master, Great Fiend, Heavenly Fiend, Moon Goddess, Primordial Six Evil Ancestors, as well as the sovereigns of the second, third, fourth, and fifth realms, all looked towards the human realm. The primordial void universe had never seen such an intense phenomenon. Even the primordial six sovereigns' breakthroughs were not so intense and filled with pressure. While this piqued the curiosity of many experts, it also filled them with a desire to explore. Amidst the indescribable shock, everyone saw the birth and destruction of the greater thousand universes in the surrounding void. It seemed to contain the countless mysteries of the transformations of creation. It seemed to be plundering, surging with earth, water, wind, and fire. It seemed to be the evolution of mountains and rivers. It also seemed to be the 8 trigrams of yin and yang, the birth of lightning. All sorts of transformations were thought-provoking. Amidst the birth and death of the greater thousand universe, chaos was destroyed and life was manifested. Numerous emerald green lotuses seemed to appear in the endless heavens. It was as though the heavens and earth had become one because of these green lotuses. Light emerged, and gradually, countless rays of light seemed to turn into rays of light that connected together. They intertwined, and in the center, a huge 12th-rank green lotus that seemed to cover thousands of worlds was born. On top of the green lotus, a green seed appeared. The brilliance changed, and there seemed to be boundless chaos emerging. Chaos bloomed and gradually evolved into a huge world. Yin and Yang were born in this world. Yin and Yang evolved into the 8 trigrams, and the 8 trigrams evolved into all things. The Tao convergence phenomenon, chaos birth, green lotus of the universe. At this time, in the depths of mountain paradise in the west of the heaven realm, under the divine tree of life, the western godly king of life, who was comprehending the mysteries of life, opened her watery eyes. On her palm, countless life forces appeared and turned into a boundless green lotus. On the green lotus, all things were born. The petals turned into mountains and rivers, yin and yang, and all things. Her watery eyes were filled with a different kind of comprehension. The cultivation methods of the extraterrestrial experts are similar to the cultivation methods of our world. However, compared to our world's cultivation methods, there seems to be a different kind of grandeur. The auspicious cloud above Qin Feng's head opened, and endless cloud light appeared. 12th rank spirits see white lotus creation, auspicious cloud. Countless green lotuses gradually merged with the huge auspicious cloud that appeared in the center and merged into it, strengthening the auspicious cloud. At the same time, in the void, the innate creation great Tao emerged with the auspicious cloud. It appeared among the many Hotian, Zhongtian, and innate phenomenons. These phenomenons were the manifestation of Qin Feng, a half-step golden immortal who was in the process of Tao convergence. They were also the manifestation of the power of the innate creation great Tao. The visual manifestation of the great Tao was either the 4 symbols of earth, water, fire, and wind bowing to Tao, or the 10 suns running amok, shining the sun on heaven and earth. Or the lightning manifested, and the purple thunder descended. Light and darkness were chaotic, and there was no sun, but light shone on the 9 provinces. This was the visual manifestation of the heavenly Tao. In the void of the universe, countless experts directly comprehended the heavenly Tao and witnessed the true meaning of the great Tao. Their cultivation base improved greatly. Qin Feng's expression remained unchanged. His divine will was cold and calm, and he advanced bravely. He was like the Taishang, emotionless. Endless thunder rumbled in his ears, but it didn't shake his mind at all. In the boundless Hotian Tao convergence phenomenon, it gradually turned into green lotuses that filled the sky, as if the creation of the heavens had become one. The huge auspicious cloud seemed to fill the void of the universe. It was ethereal and swallowed the boundless green lotuses. The brilliance on its body looked like mottled rust over the years. It was decaying and had a trace of dimness. When many experts from the outer realms saw this scene, they understood that the Tao Convergence half-step Golden Immortal was about to begin his Tao Convergence. This step was rather dangerous. The slightest mistake would cause his essence soul to be destroyed, and he would die completely. In the void, this auspicious cloud seemed to have broken through an unknown bottleneck and was close to the great Tao of heaven and earth. Bits of invisible aura seemed to fall from the void and fuse into the auspicious cloud. It appeared from nothing and encompassed everything. It became clearer. As this bit of aura fell, the auspicious cloud Tao fruit that contained Qin Feng's lifetime cultivation gradually changed. It was as if there were spots of light on the rust. The spots of light seeped into the auspicious cloud and brushed away the traces of rust. It formed a unique great Tao with strange spots of light. That was Qin Feng's Tao. It was the unique innate creation great Tao that belonged to him alone. The spots of light of the great Tao became brighter and brighter. It pressed forward with indomitable will. Qin Feng's essence soul began to appear. Bit by bit, his face became paler and paler as he began to approach the unique innate creation great Tao. Every time he got closer, his essence soul would become more illusory like a silver light. It was as if every time he got closer, his Tao would be shaved off by hundreds or even thousands of years. Qin Feng seemed to be unaware. He did not care about anything and was cautious. However, he was wise and brave as he faced death head-on. This step tested the foundation of the Tao Convergence cultivator, just like the immeasurable merit when the Buddha of immeasurable merit refined the Tao. If one's Tao attainment was insufficient, they would be directly reduced to nothingness by the power of the great Tao. The innate creation great Tao was different from the innate merit great Tao. It did not test one's merit, but one's Tao attainment. Qin Feng's foundation was solid. He had comprehended the divine laws of the myriad worlds in the heavens. The spirit of his Tao attainment far exceeded that of ordinary top-notch half-step golden immortals. As his Tao attainment was reduced, the ball of light in the center became brighter and brighter. It was incomparably blazing, as if the world could not erase it. In the next moment it entered the great Tao of light spots. With a loud bang, the great Tao of the void universe seemed to suddenly tremble violently, and a portion of it collapsed. Countless cultivators who cultivated the creation great Tao, as well as many postnatal great Tao cultivators under the connate creation great Tao, felt their essence souls tremble. They were forcefully shaken out of the laws, and their cultivation levels were suddenly lost. It was as if the myriad worlds in the heavens were everywhere and existed everywhere, but they were also in the boundless void. The creation great Tao in reality suddenly shrank, as if someone had forcefully cut off a section and condensed it into a point. Chapter 1426. The first step of the Tao integration stage is completed. Feeling the imbalanced dermic powers in her body, Tao Ancestor Empress Wa's face turned extremely gloomy under a tree of life in the Ling of Gojosian Kingdom of the West. Anger was written all over her face, sinister and overcast. The huge imminent threat made her feel as if a fishbone was stuck in her throat, and her killing intent surged. When a half-step golden immortal reached the Tao integration stage, only a Tao ancestor could intervene. The power of her clone was not enough to shake the other party. But it was not impossible. As long as she was willing to part with this clone, she might be able to defeat the Green Lotus Tathagata. After thinking for a while, Empress Hua made up her mind. The first step of the Tao integration stage was to intercept the Great Tao, which Qin Feng had completed. The second step was to condense the Tao seed. After all, the intercepted Great Tao did not completely belong to him, and he needed to turn it into an innate Tao seed of creation. Qin Feng's primordial spirit fused into the intercepted Great Tao and began to gradually change. Countless innate mysteries of creation were grasped by his primordial spirit. The auspicious clouds rotated, and the modeled Great Tao was gradually controlled. Little by little, it transformed into chaos according to Qin Feng's will. The chaos surged as if a seed had fallen and turned into a green lotus. The green lotus only had a few tender leaves, and the flower bud in the center was tightly closed. In the center of the bud was the green lotus Tao seed of creation that Qin Feng had carved with all his strength. It was slowly absorbing the intercepted Great Tao of creation. Every time it absorbed a little, the green lotus matured a little, and its leaves opened a little. There were 12 leaves, and it would take some time for it to fully open. Rumble! At this moment a great change suddenly occurred. Above the firmament, a huge palm suddenly appeared and directly tore the void apart, grabbing at Qin Feng fiercely. Someone made a move? Seeing this scene, the expressions of many extraterrestrial experts changed. It's him. He was also resurrected by the heavenly Tao? In Zhongzhou City, Chunnan, the purple-gold divine dragon, and the celestial phoenix maiden all changed their expressions. The 7 absolute fairies sneered. He must have just been resurrected and wants to devour the origin of that Tao validation expert to recover his cultivation. Although Qin Feng had been at the Tao integration stage this entire time, he was not oblivious to the changes in his surroundings. Looking at the massive hand in the sky, he casually made a grabbing motion. When the colossal hand grasped forward, a large stretch of space-time was torn apart and the colossal hand made its way into the torn space-time. Next, Qin Feng grasped again and space-time closed up once more. Seal it in. What a powerful space-time manipulation ability! In the second world, in a huge Pure Land, an ancient expert opened his eyes, revealing a strange look. He was the god of time and space of this world. He was the most ancient sovereign of the space-time laws. But that old bastard Guangyuan is not so easy to deal with. Bang! As soon as his voice fell, the void suddenly exploded, and a huge path appeared in the space-time, leading directly to an inexplicable place of eternal darkness. It was an ancient land filled with desolation. In the depths of the darkness, there were 3 huge and ancient stone statues that exuded unparalleled power. Damn it, isn't this the 3 lives incarnation of that old fart, Guangyuan? How come he's alive again? A purple-robed young man with a ruffian look looked at the 3 incarnations in a daze. Fool, it's fake. That old bastard, Guangyuan, once used innate spiritual objects to refine the 3 eternal incarnations of the past, present, and future. However, they were stolen by Brother Chunnan, the peerless King Chu Xiangyu, and that existence. These 3 incarnations in front of you are just imitations. You can't even tell that? What a fool. Idiot. A mini dragon beside him shook its head, holding a huge chicken drumstick in its claws. After saying that, it knocked the purple-robed young man's head. A loud sound resounded through heaven and earth. The mini dragon seemed to have deliberately let out the sound. For a moment, there was a slight silence between heaven and earth. Qin Feng remained calm and collected. In the perception of his primordial spirit, a lotus leaf had already been born from the green lotus. The jade green lotus leaf was tender and tender, absorbing the connate creation great Tao. The second lotus leaf was opening. At the same time, the boundless mysteries of creation were grasped by Qin Feng's primordial spirit. In that desolate and dark land, the 3 stone statues were extremely furious. Chun Nan, Chu Xiangyu, and that existence had stolen his body of 3 lives. This was a pain that he would never forget. If not for that, his 3 lives incarnation would have already proven his Tao. Their wounds were open just like that, and they were even stepped on. The 3 stone statues were furious. In the depths of the land of darkness, a dazzling brilliance flew out, revealing endless sacred brilliance, tore through the air and grabbed at Qin Feng. Chaos is vast, and order is born. The brilliance swept across, and wherever it passed, chaos was split open. Primordial light and darkness were born in heaven and earth. The vast power seemed to be able to stabilize heaven and earth. Powerful energy overflowed, shaking heaven and earth. It far exceeded the limits of ordinary half-step golden immortals. However, Qin Feng was also extraordinarily powerful at this moment. He was originally a half-step golden immortal at the peak of the ancestral realm. At this moment, he had forcefully intercepted the innate great Tao of creation and fused it into the auspicious cloud. At every moment, he was comprehending the boundless true meaning of the great Tao of creation. His strength had increased exponentially, surpassing that of a half-step golden immortal. Moreover, it was changing at every moment. He didn't seem to move much, but he raised a hand. It was as if a huge and boundless palm was rapidly expanding. Wherever it passed, the terrifying and endless divine brilliance only left a deep mark on the palm before it was completely covered. In the next moment, the palm traversed through time and space and heavily bombarded the boundless land of darkness. Rumble! The entire boundless land of darkness was split into pieces. Sacred order, illuminate the ages. In the darkness, an extremely angry voice sounded. Terrifying light was born from the depths of the darkness, and the sacred light suddenly tore the huge palm apart. Divine power of time, exile from the ages. Qin Feng's expression didn't change. The shattered palm suddenly turned into a turbulent torrent that filled the sky in the next moment, colliding with the sacred light that rushed up from below. The vast torrent of time and space surged. In the blink of an eye, the 3 strange experts who had merged into one stone statue were sent into an unknown time and space. What an amazing guy! He can actually cultivate his own strength to such an extent. He can transform chaos into time and space. Many experts watched Guang Yuan being sent into the depths of the endless time and space. While they were astonished, they were even more shocked. Guang Yuan was a famous blackhand in this world. He had cheated countless experts. Creation is not only about refining, but also about transformation. He has actually comprehended the great Tao of creation to such an extent. On the other side, under the tree of life, Empress Hua's face was gloomier, and the killing intent in her heart was even stronger. Even Sovereign Yuhua had only comprehended this after a long period of time after her Tao integration. If this green lotus Tathagata of creation were to succeed in his Tao integration, even a 17th-level Tao ancestor might not be able to completely suppress him. Empress Hua watched as Qin Feng's 2nd and 3rd green lotus leaves opened, and even the 4th green lotus leaves began to open. All 12 green lotus leaves opened, and the Tao seed was about to condense. Empress Hua's eyes were filled with killing intent. She was about to launch a destructive attack. Suddenly, heaven and earth shook, and a terrifying aura descended from the void. Someone had made a move again. Empress Hua slowly restrained her killing intent when she sensed the majestic and terrifying power that was even stronger than her doppelganger. Her eyes flickered fiercely. Since someone had made a move, she didn't need to do it herself. She only needed to wait for an opportunity to deliver a fatal blow when the green lotus Tathagata of creation was weak. Chapter 1427. Rumble. Suddenly, an extremely terrifying giant palm appeared. The palm was black and furry, and when it came down, the stars collapsed, the universe collapsed, and the space-time shattered. It was a terrifying scene that sent chills down one's spine. It wasn't just this arm. In the ancient world, there were 3 other terrifying forces that swept towards Qin Feng. It's over. Some of the ancient ancestor gods of the 6 immemorial evil paths. Its ancestor god Hun Tian, destruction ancestor god, chaos ancestor god, and extermination ancestor god. The 4 ancestor gods have made their move. They want to kill that expert. At this moment, all the gods in the heaven world had lost their voices. Hun Tian, destruction, chaos, and extermination, they actually revived? On the continent's central city, a fat golden dragon smacked his lips. Above the city, many experts had strange expressions as they looked at the young man in the center who was like a moon surrounded by stars. Chen Nan shrugged and smiled awkwardly. Don't look at me. Although these guys wanted to kill me before, they still contributed to the destruction of the heavenly Tao. Ancient ancestor gods of the 6 immemorial evil paths. Qin Feng's face darkened. Other than the 4 ancestor gods of the 6 immemorial evil paths, he could vaguely feel that there were many covetous gazes in the void. Those people were all coveting his source energy and soul. The experts in this world were a little strange. As long as they had their source energy and soul, they could break through the 5th level of the heaven realm and improve endlessly. Exterminate. He casually raised the war god sword. A ray of destructive light jumped on the sword. Qin Feng's face was cold as he slashed out with the sword. The vast sword light was like a vast river of stars. Everywhere it passed, a few terrifying roars could be heard. Then, 4 or 5 enormous forces, even space and stars were sliced into thousands of pieces, and they transformed into torrents that swept backwards. In the depths of the 3rd realm, a mountain range of hundreds of thousands of miles was blasted and shattered into thousands of pieces. In the depths of the mountain range, countless disciples of several huge sects were turned into blood mist in shock and anger. The old nest has been sunk. Seeing the destruction of several huge sacred grounds in the depths of the 3rd realm, many ancient experts in the various worlds sneered and gloated. In the depths of the mountain range, 4 ancestor gods flew out with disheveled hair and soaring killing intent. The fury in their eyes seemed to have materialized. The 4 elder gods were completely enraged as they charged straight towards the mortal world. Again? Qin Feng's face was somewhat gloomy. He had spent a lot of energy dealing with Guang Yuan just now. The ancestral gods of the primeval 6 paths weren't the only enemies in the dark. As the 4th lotus leaf completely opened, the 5th and 6th lotus leaves appeared one after another. Qin Feng's energy was greatly restricted. If too many enemies came, it was very likely that the Tao seed he condensed would shatter, and he would fail on the verge of success. This is troublesome. At this moment there was no need to say anything. Many xenorace experts were able to sense the trouble Qin Feng was in at this moment. He was besieged by so many experts, and practically all of them were like wolves and tigers. Even some Taofathers and Buddhist patriarchs might not be able to withstand such a fierce siege. Looks like there's no need for me to do anything. Under the ancient tree of life, Taoist Empress Hua looked at the situation in the eastern lands from afar. A faint smile appeared on her usually cold face. It was undoubtedly the best outcome for her to be able to deal with the green lotus fortune Rulai while preserving her avatar. If she could attain connate creation in this world and receive the great Tao's feedback, her main body's cultivation would undoubtedly improve further. Taoist Kundi, it seems like your Buddhist sect's green lotus fortune Rulai isn't particularly lucky. In the endless void, a Taoist looked at the frowning Taoist opposite him and smiled faintly. Taoist Kundi was not angered. He only looked at Taoist numinous treasure and said indifferently, Taoist numinous treasure, if the green lotus fortune Rulai can't attain Tao integration, do you think others have the ability to? As soon as he said that, the expressions of several Taoists in the void changed slightly. The number of experts in this world was beyond their imagination. Especially their killing power, it was simply heaven-defying. He then turned to look at the 6 trapped Supreme Monarchs. These 6 were merely 16th-tier Taofathers, but 3 18th-tier Taofathers and 3 17th-tier Taofathers had to join forces to barely suppress these 6. More and more people are attacking. Chun Nan, what should we do? Say something? In the central city of the Heaven Realm, the 4 ancestor gods who were about to cross over, as well as a few ancient ancestor gods among the gods of West Earth who were ready to make a move, and many kings from various worlds had quietly cast their gazes over. Chun Nan's expression was strange. The extraterritorial experts were a great enemy. They could be said to be the enemy of the entire world. However, he controlled the heavenly Tao and vaguely felt that the other party's method of attaining Tao did not seem to be malicious towards the Archean void great cosmos. However, even if they did not have any malicious intentions, the experts from other worlds who entered this great cosmos to attain Tao might be angry that their territory had been invaded. After pondering for a while, Chun Nan said, "Wait a minute, don't attack first." Chun Nan was the leader of the group. Seeing that he had spoken, everyone in Central City immediately extinguished any thoughts of attacking. However, even if Chun Nan did not attack, it did not mean that the others would not attack. In the second realm, other than 4 of the ancestor gods of the Archean 6 paths, another ancient existence had already started to attack. The mellow and pleasant sound of a guqin emitted a series of sonorous sounds of swords and sabers. 2 huge beams of dazzling light directly tore through the second realm and slashed towards the human realm. It's the evil lord, the master of the ancestor gods of the Archean 6 paths. In Central City, someone recognized the ancient Lord of Heaven who had attacked. Rumble. At this moment, in the human realm, in the distant West Earth, boundless power also rose. A few forces appeared, and the world was like a curtain that was pulled and forcibly torn apart. A few forces that could change the world surged out and swept towards Qin Feng. It's the ancestor gods of the earth, fire, wind, and water ancestor gods of the West. The 4 ancestor gods are attacking. They are the ancestors of the gods of the West Earth, existences among the Archean gods. There's also Tengtu of the West Earth, Tengradilo of the West Earth. Countless experts turned pale with fright. Rumble. It was as though the world had shattered. Several towering figures had already appeared at the end of the boundless universe. One of them was the most terrifying. It was a blood-haired man. His naked upper body was covered in terrifying fiend runes. His lower body did not have legs, but a huge snake tail that was 20 to 30 feet long. There was a terrifying vertical eye at the center of his brows. The fluctuations emitted by that expert were far above that of the 4 ancestor gods of the West Earth. Like the primordial evil lord, he was a supreme sovereign of this world. Some experts from the other realm, such as Neza, Taoist Greenleaf, Northstar Divine Lord, Golden Toad Demon Sage, and other junior half-step golden immortals, were aghast. The fluctuations emitted by the 2 ancient experts seemed to be able to obliterate ordinary peak half-step golden immortals. How can such a delicious origin source and soul be missing from my West Earth's totem Redaleo? Give it to me. The West Earth's totem's gloomy sneer resounded through the endless void. He also extended a huge hand and grabbed at Qin Feng across the endless void. Many forces grabbed at him from all directions as though they wanted to divide this huge cake. At this moment, Qin Feng was in danger. Chapter 1428. The distant sound of the zither seemed to deprive the 6 senses of heaven and earth. Under the blood-red hands, time and space were stagnant, and the universe turned into a torrent of fragments. In the same place, with a gloomy expression, Qin Feng's eyes flashed fiercely. It seems that those backup plans should be activated. Roar. It was as if the roar of hundreds of millions of beings, and the experts of the heavens seemed to hear the roar of the ancestral dragon. In the mortal realm, with the Qin kingdom where Xianyang City was located as the center, a huge killing formation was revived. Not only Xianyang City where the Qin kingdom was located, Linzi where the capital of the Qi kingdom was located, Yenying where the capital of the Yan kingdom was located, Ji City where the capital of the Yan kingdom was located, Xinjiang where the capital of the South Korea was located, Daliang where the capital of the Wei kingdom was located, Handan where the capital of the Zhao kingdom was located, and there were also Lu, Jing, Chao, Wei, Chun, and many other small kingdoms. A series of killing formations emerged, transforming into a dragon's roar. A pillar of light rose into the sky, and with the change of Qin Feng's hand seal, it gradually turned into a shocking divine dragon, emerging in the mortal realm and merging with each other into the central seven kingdoms. Formation? That seems to be the dragon vein of the mortal realm? He can actually control the dragon vein of the mortal realm? In the heaven realm, many immortals' faces changed. Qin Feng certainly could control the dragon vein of the mortal realm. He had not spent the past few months in vain. He had long thought of today's encounter, and a few months ago, he had used the heart demon technique to transform into thousands of illusions and enter into the layout of various countries. He himself was good at formations. Since he wanted to merge with the Tao, how could he give up his advantage? What a powerful cultivation of formations! In the eastern land of the mortal realm, almost all the dragon veins of the various countries were forcibly trapped by the formation. Capture. On Zhongzhou City, the celestial phoenix maiden's beautiful face had a trace of incredulity. The qi of the dragon vein was the most unruly. Many people knew that only the emperor could control the dragon vein. Even the super experts could only kill, not imprison. Little Phoenix, you don't understand. Not only that, there seems to be another connection between these formations like a whole. The countless dragon veins of the eastern land of the mortal realm were integrated. He did not imprison the true dragon, but completely integrated. Control. On the side, the fat golden dragon shook his head while gnawing on a big chicken leg. So terrifying? He could actually control a real dragon? His mastery of formations is probably on par with Dugubatian, the Devil Master, and the others. Beside the purple-gold divine dragon, Silver Dragon Gallus couldn't help but click her tongue. As the killing formations were activated one after another, they fused with the dragon Qi of the Yen, Zhao, Han, Wei, Qi, Chu, and Qi nations in the center and turned into 7 huge divine dragons that pounced on the many powerful cultivators who were sneaking up on them. Rumble! Along with a series of earth-shattering roars, which sounded like the roars of millions upon millions of living beings in the eastern lands, huge explosions rang out in the sky, stretching to the ends of the horizon. In the middle, there were also huge arms that seemed to be able to cover the sky. One expert after another was forcefully stopped. The mighty ones roared in anger, especially the most terrifying one, the evil lord. The Western Earth Totem smashed the 7 huge divine dragons one after another. However, the advantage of these 7 huge divine dragons was that they could grow and multiply endlessly. Those huge killing formations were connected to the power of all living beings in the eastern lands, as well as the boundless power of the earth. Although their destructive power was not very strong, their defensive power was extremely terrifying. The divine dragons swam in the sky above the mortal realm, firmly blocking the 7 nations that were protecting the center. This formation was so powerful that even if a few 16th-level Tao ancestors came, they would be able to withstand it for a few breaths. Taking advantage of the explosion of the formation, Qin Feng focused all his attention on comprehending the primordial spirit. In the chaotic qi that evolved from the auspicious clouds, the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th lotus leaves of the green lotus bloomed one after another. What a pair of incompetent fellows! A mere formation was enough to stop you. At this moment, an evil and arrogant laughter came from the depths of the western lands. Above the sky, under the moon, a figure that blotted out the sun appeared. There seemed to be endless hurricanes that swept across the heavens and myriad realms as it spread its wings. With a roar, on the 100-mile-long celestial dragon's body, 9 huge dragon heads, and 18 pairs of extremely evil eyes looked over, as if they were tearing the void apart. That was another terrifying super-lord of the primordial void universe, the 9-headed celestial dragon. Seeing his appearance, the ancestral gods' expressions changed drastically. They hurriedly stopped what they were doing and quickly disappeared into the void. It was as if they had met a terrifying natural enemy. What a wonderful meal! Cackling strangely, he glanced at the fleeing ancestral gods with clear disdain in his eyes. With a sneer, 18 pairs of extremely evil draconic eyes stared greedily at the ancestral gods. Suddenly, 9 draconic heads opened at the same time and spat out beams of divine light that exploded the ancestral gods. Then, the dragon mouths opened and swallowed fiercely. The exploded divine dragons were swallowed by the 9 huge dragon heads. As the 9-headed celestial dragon swallowed, the light of the huge killing formations dimmed. The dragon chi was swallowed, and the killing formations lost their power. Qin Feng's expression did not change. The 10th lotus leaf in the auspicious clouds had bloomed, and the 11th lotus leaf was about to open. Soon, all 12 lotus leaves would open. Once the Tao seed was successfully condensed, there was only the final step of Tao unification left. No one could stop the final step. But suddenly, something strange happened. Above the firmament, the world seemed to have lost its light. In the next moment, several huge arms were born behind the moon. The 2 ancient kings of the Third Realm, Songzan Debu, Zhongnai, and Arist, have made their move. An expert sucked in a breath of cold air. 3 huge arms appeared and slammed down fiercely. The 9-headed celestial dragon was swallowing the dragon chi above the formation. The silver scales on his body gradually glowed with a golden color. Seeing this, he was shocked and cursed angrily. He hurriedly dodged. The huge palms slammed on the formation, and the killing formations of the mortal world suddenly exploded. Under the huge power, countless living beings vomited blood. Millions of living beings directly exploded into pieces of flesh and blood. At the same time, the 11th lotus leaf in the auspicious clouds above Qin Feng's head finally opened. The 12th lotus leaf was absorbing the last bit of the great Tao's mystery. Vaguely, a jade-green seed of light was faintly discernible. Seeing that the formation was about to be destroyed, several terrifying palms slammed down. Qin Feng's expression changed slightly, and a jade-green 12th lotus appeared above his head. At this critical moment, Qin Feng finally took out his natal spiritual treasure. Just a little bit more. As long as he could endure the 12th lotus leaf, he would not be afraid anymore. The huge 12th lotus of fortune bloomed above Qin Feng's head. In the west, in the treehouse of the Tree of Life, Empress Hua opened her eyes and sneered. Now is the time. At this time, in the treehouse, there was a straw doll with the words Green Lotus Fortune Tathagata written on it. There was a lamp above its head and another under its feet. On the altar, there were books, talismans, and seals burning. This secret technique was none other than the most famous Nailhead's 7 Arrows book of the demon race. In the past, in order to help Dipankara Buddha achieve Tao, the demon race's crown prince, Liu Ye, had used this technique to plot against the first disciple of the Shangqing Palace, half-step golden immortal Zhao Gongming. This time, this secret technique was activated by a Tao ancestor at the critical moment, and its power would be even greater. Especially now that Qin Feng was besieged by many terrifying experts. Chapter 1429. She stepped forward, her hair disheveled. Streaks of invisible, vicious aura that could cause heaven and earth to sink attacked the scarecrow at the center of the altar. In the void, the monarch of the second realm, Songzhendebu, Aride, Zhong-Enai, the evil dominator, the nine-headed heavenly dragon, and Tengtu of the west attacked at the same time. Those who could be called monarchs were far beyond ordinary half-step golden immortals. Their offensive techniques had already entered a profound realm. To a certain extent, it was as if several 16th-level lords attacked at the same time. Streaks of dazzling light seemed to shatter the heavens and the earth. The eternal darkness seemed to be filled with divine light. At this moment, even the souls of some of the experts who were watching this scene were unable to withstand the power. Their physical bodies were unable to withstand this power and completely exploded. The 12th grade green lotus of creation above Qin Feng's head shook violently, releasing a boundless divine green brilliance. It soared into the sky and resisted the power of the six monarchs. The 12th grade green lotus of creation's defense was unparalleled. However, there was still a huge limitation. It could only resist for 2 seconds before terrifying cracks appeared on the 12th grade green lotus of creation. With his natal spiritual treasure severely damaged, Qin Feng felt as if he was struck by lightning. His face turned pale instantly. Under the huge backlash, blood seeped out from under his skin and dyed his white robe red. He could still withstand for at least 2 more seconds. It should be enough. In the sky, the 12th lotus leaf in the auspicious cloud was opening. 2 more seconds would be enough. At this moment, his expression suddenly changed. His extremely sensitive primordial spirit sensed that there were suddenly countless pitch-black evil forces in the void. They were like evil dragons that suddenly rushed out from the endless void. As soon as they appeared, they immediately enveloped and began to bite his primordial spirit. The terrifying pain made his primordial spirit feel like it was on fire, as if it was being fried in a pan of oil. His primordial spirit dimmed, and there was a terrifying feeling of drowsiness pulling at his primordial spirit. His vast dermic powers seemed to be polluted. Decay, decay. Degenerate, degenerate. In the unseen world, it was as if the curse of heaven and earth had swept over. In just an instant, it seemed to have completely drowned Qin Feng's primordial spirit. Qin Feng's primordial spirit shook slightly. Bang! Losing control of the grade 12 green lotus of creation above his head, half of it instantly shattered. 6 of the lotus leaves turned into pieces of emerald green tiles that shattered like colored glass. Qin Feng's primordial spirit treasure was closely related to his primordial spirit. The moment his primordial spirit treasure broke, Qin Feng's primordial spirit was like a spider web that was filled with cracks. However, he seemed to be unaware of it, as if he didn't feel the pain of his primordial spirit shattering. The Nailhead 7 Audiobook's curse had bewitched his Tao heart. The entire grade 12 creation green lotus shattered, and the remaining power came crashing down on him like a torrent. Not good, someone is plotting against us. Qin Feng himself was a master of controlling inner demons and cursing. His Taoist heart was surprisingly tough. Taking advantage of the fact that his natal spiritual treasure was damaged and his primordial spirit was almost broken, he finally suppressed the drowsy black gas with his greatest willpower at the last moment and barely woke up. It was as if he could see a figure with disheveled hair casting a spell with all his might. It was as if all the malice of the heavens had been mobilized. It turned into a sharp arrow and shot toward him. Facing this almost certain death situation, his Taoist heart became brighter and brighter. It was as beautiful as the moon, and it became colder and more self-controlled. Even the boundless pitch-black curse that entangled his primordial spirit was temporarily frozen and unable to invade. At this moment, his physical body and primordial spirit were both heavily injured. His physical body and primordial spirit were already on the verge of collapse. However, the more desperate the situation was, the more his fighting spirit soared, and he even had a fearless and lofty spirit of seeking the truth in the morning and dying in the evening. Creator space. Final attack. Without hesitation, he used the last trump card in his body. A terrifying white light that shook the heavens and earth erupted from his body. That was the last of the energy stored in the Creator Space's origin pool. It was equivalent to an attack from a peak 16th level Creator God. That was the last life-saving trump card that Qin Feng had prepared for himself, just in case. This time, in this desperate situation of life and death, it was finally put to use. Although the blazing white light couldn't compare to the combined attack of the 6 Supreme Sovereigns, it blocked the 6 Supreme Sovereigns' attacks for a moment or two. Although this moment or two was extremely long, and one wouldn't even have time to do anything else. However, for Qin Feng, who was on the brink of death, it was enough. Damn it! At this moment, Emperor Enviwa raised her head. She clenched her teeth so hard that they almost broke. Under the gazes of many experts, in the center of the void great cosmos, amidst the boundless chaotic aura, the grade 12 green lotus bloomed. It was an emerald green connate Tao seed that was like a small emerald sun. The connate Tao seed's form was in the shape of a green lotus. It was a small green lotus. Although it looked extremely weak and small, as if it could be uprooted by a gentle breeze at any time, it was still very powerful. Crack! A soft sound was heard, as if the heavens and earth were falling apart. Qin Feng Deshang's connate Tao aptitude, and even his primordial spirit, seemed to be unable to bear the burden at this moment. In an instant, they shattered and turned into countless flying ashes. A bit of true spirit flew out from the Tao body that had turned into ashes. It was like a bright and boundless moon. At this moment, Qin Feng decisively shattered his own Tao body and primordial spirit, using this to delay and block the attack of the boundless curse. His gaze fell on the connate Tao seed in the center. He had always been calm and collected. At this moment, there was a trace of indomitable determination that even the heavens and earth couldn't erase. At this moment, as the true spirit emerged. At this moment, a bit of darkness emerged from the depths of his body. That bit of darkness was like a bottomless abyss. It was formed by the darkest thoughts of billions of beings in the world. It seemed as if the boundless heavens, billions of greater worlds, and countless lesser worlds had completely fallen. In the darkness, it seemed as if the heavens and earth were withering and withering. The pitch-black darkness spread rapidly from within his body. The true spirit rapidly withered, and died. Darkness enveloped him. He couldn't see any way forward. All beings obstruct the path. At this moment, many extraterrestrial experts, local experts, and even the 12 Tao ancestors and kings in the depths of the endless void stopped what they were doing. Tao Ancestor Empress Wa's expression changed drastically. This was the last tribulation of the third step of the Tao unification stage. This was the backlash of the heavens and earth. It was also the evil thoughts and backlash of billions of beings in the world sinking into the boundless sea of bitterness. Cultivators intercepted the creation of the heavens and earth and were destined to form boundless karma with billions of beings. The boundless dermic powers of the Tao unification stage half-step golden immortals came from all beings, from the heavens and earth, and from countless greater worlds in the heavens. Naturally, they would have to accept the backlash of those boundless beings. They would definitely not give birth to someone who could ascend to the position of connate Tao ancestor. At the same time, at the end of time, Qin Feng saw the figures of the 6 peerless kings. Dugu Baitian, Demon Lord, Ghost Lord, Human King, Ancestor Chen, and Chen Zhan. They were the figures of the 6 peerless kings who had already reached the Tao unification stage in this world. It seemed as if the 6 of them had struck across the heavens and earth. However, Qin Feng didn't seem to feel it. He allowed the attacks to land on his body. In the depths of his true spirit, a blazing divine light was like 10,000 feet. It directly penetrated all beings and found the Khanate Tao seed of creation hidden in the depths of all beings. He saw it, as if he saw the Khanate Tao of creation, and instantly sank into it. Chapter 1430. Boom. It was as if heaven and earth were collapsing, and the void was extremely dark. It was as if the Khanate creation Great Tao had become extremely unstable at this moment, and the 3,000 Great Taos had lost their balance. Countless immortals and gods who cultivated the Khanate creation Great Tao seemed to have suddenly lost all their dharmic powers. In the countless boundless worlds, several heaven-defying experts who cultivated the Khanate creation Great Tao, as well as the postnatal Great Tao under it, suddenly felt that they had lost all traces of the Khanate creation Great Tao. It was as if this Khanate Great Tao had suddenly disappeared among the 3,000 Great Taos. It was empty, and they had nothing to rely on. Heaven and earth fell into a scene of darkness, destruction, and withering. Did he fail to prove his Tao? At this moment, the remaining experts' expressions changed. Some sneered, some were disdainful, some were indifferent, and some were regretful. Heaven Realm, Zhongzhou City, Chunnan, 7 Absolute Goddess, Celestial Phoenix Maiden, Purple Gold Divine Dragon, Dragon Baby. Everyone secretly shook their heads. However, Chunnan and 7 Absolute Goddess were deep in thought. This breakthrough method was obviously different from the existing breakthrough methods of the immemorial void great universe, but it seemed more orthodox, just, and peaceful. Not only Chunnan, but 7 Absolute Goddess and many ancient experts who had been stuck at the peak of the Supreme Monarch realm were also moved. The failure of the Tao verifier in front of them did not mean that there was a mistake with the breakthrough method. On the contrary, it was extremely orthodox. The reason why he failed was probably because he was unlucky. He failed. In the western Ling of Gojoseon Kingdom, Tao Ancestor Empress Hua sneered, and an unconcealable smile appeared on her beautiful face. However, in the next moment countless experts looked up in shock. They only felt that there was a ball of endless divine light in the center of the void great universe. It exploded in an instant, and the blazing brilliance seemed to surpass the boundless sun, illuminating the dark corners of the immemorial void great universe that had not been illuminated for hundreds of millions of years. An incomparably mysterious figure that seemed to be formed by the great Tao gradually turned into a concrete human form from the depths of the Khanate creation Great Tao, and an extremely mysterious sacred Khanate Tao physique was outlined. It was a figure that wasn't very tall, but he seemed to be standing in the clouds like a ruler that looked down on all living beings. He also seemed like the brand new Khanate creation Great Tao, and a terrifying and boundless might emanated from his body. The heaven and earth trembled violently, the immeasurable pure land shone brightly, the heavenly flowers fell from the sky, golden lotuses bloomed from the ground, and endless purple mist filled the billions of worlds. In the countless small worlds, the mighty innate Tao of creation boiled like an ocean. In the past, we were shrouded by thick clouds and mist. Today we meet again and the Tao eye opens. This is not a matter of one day and one night. This is my true nature and not a technique. Concealing a handsome man, debating and debating cleverness, closing the scroll and pretending to be a fool. With a firm heart and determination, the great Tao will never fail you. The vast Tao sound filled the entire immemorial void universe. What a good way to end a book! The Grand Pure One, the Jade Pure One, and the High Clear One, the 3 Tao ancestors, sighed slightly. It was unknown whether he was sighing for the celestial sect of wonders or the Buddhist sect. It's done. At this moment, in the sky, a yellow-skinned and emaciated Taoist with 2 buns and wearing a bright yellow Taoist robe exchanged glances with another yellow-skinned Taoist beside him. They couldn't help but smile. At this moment, the 12th Khanate Buddha Lord of the Buddhist sect, the Green Lotus Creation Buddha Lord, Taoist Green Lotus, was born. With the birth of the 12th Buddha Lord, the Buddhist sect had a slight advantage in the battle against the celestial sect of wonders. They wouldn't be completely suppressed in the immemorial void universe. Under the tree of life in West Earth, Empress Wa's face was already ashen, and waves of coldness surged from her body. When Qin Feng stepped out of the central primal chaos, all the phenomena in the void of the universe suddenly converged. Then, the vast three realms resonance and the phenomenon of the great Tao descending disappeared. All the extraterrestrial experts, even the super lords born in the local universe, and the ancestral gods knew that another connate Tao ancestor, a primordial lord, had been born. This new Tao verifier had completely become a chaotic essence, golden immortal, and merged with the connate creation great Tao. From then on, the boundless green lotus creation supremacy Buddha Lord was the connate green lotus creation Tao ancestor. I didn't expect that kid to be one step ahead of me. At this moment, in a terrifying and dangerous place in the fourth world, a terrifying golden light smashed countless fighting souls. The ancient fighting souls surrounded the fighting souls and rushed forward crazily. His body was covered with countless wounds, but his expression was ferocious. The Jingu Bang vibrated, intimidating the fighting souls so much that they didn't dare to move forward. He looked at the boundless clear light in the void and murmured, "However, I won't fall behind," he roared. In an instant, he rushed into the countless fighting souls again. The more he fought, the stronger he became. His aura seemed to be more than twice as strong as when he had just entered the immemorial void universe. At this moment, in the deepest part of this realm, in the endless ancient starry sky, an ancient superlord was sitting on an ancient throne. He was looking at the newly born seventh primordial lord of the void universe in the void. His eyes were deducing endless mysteries. If a Tao ancestor of the primitive great universe was here, he would realize that the aura of this superlord was gradually approaching that of a Tao ancestor. It was a Tao ancestor, not a lord. What an amazing beauty! In a mansion in the city of Linzi, Qi Nation, the 6 experts of the Jade Pure Palace, Yang Jian, Neza, Yu Ding, Yang Wanli, and the 2 clones of the Tao ancestors of the South Pole and East Pole, were quietly looking at the depths of the universe. Yang Jian, Neza, Yu Ding, and Yang Wanli, the 4 top half-step golden immortals of the Jade Pure Palace, looked at each other, burning with fighting spirit. At this moment, no matter which Tao ancestor they were from, the remaining future Buddha and half-step golden immortals of the primitive great universe were all filled with fighting spirit. Qin Feng's success in Tao integration gave many people hope. His eyes were sparkling, and endless mysterious aura surrounded him. The light on Qin Feng's body dissipated, and he returned to his original appearance. He was dressed in white, with long hair draped over his shoulders and a sword in his hand. He looked extremely ordinary, like a graceful white-robed swordsman in the secular world, like a martial arts master in that plane. However, there was a power that shook the universe and the void with every move he made, and it looked ordinary. The Tao body was indescribable and mysterious. This scene was like the supreme Tao ancestor who created the world, standing in the chaos. Before heaven and earth were separated, an object was suspended above, encompassing everything and drifting outside. This was the great Tao. Qin Feng looked up, and in the next moment, his gaze landed on the evil dominator, the West Earth Totem, the 9-headed heavenly dragon, Songzan Debut, Aride, and Zhong Enai. He raised a white palm, and the 6 super lords' expressions changed drastically. They felt an irresistible and terrifying power pressing down on them from all directions, and endless chaos pressed down. The surroundings were like an unbreakable furnace of heaven and earth, refining them alive. Chapter 1431. With one hand trapping the evil dominator, the West Earth Totem, the 9-headed heavenly dragon, Songzanbu, Aride, and Zhong Enai, Qin Feng's other gaze landed on Taoist Empress Wa's clone under the Tree of Life. Taoist Empress Wa's expression changed drastically as three connate spiritual pearls appeared. They seemed to contain the profundities of heaven, earth, and man as they protected her with tricolored divine light. In the primeval universe, you have been suppressing me endlessly. If that's all, it's not too much for the sake of the great Tao. However, I will not forgive you for trying to assassinate me. A vast sword light swept out and knocked the three connate spiritual pearls away silently. The sword light landed on Taoist Empress Wa's clone and killed her instantly. That terrifying power caused the All Heavens experts to gasp in shock. And you guys? Qin Feng's gaze landed on the four ancestor gods of West Earth. When the four ancestor gods of earth, water, wind, and fire saw Qin Feng's gaze, their souls almost left their bodies. Under that gaze, the four pinnacle ancestor gods felt like they couldn't move at all. They were like lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Damn it, you're underestimating us. At that moment, the evil dominator, the West Earth Totem, the nine-headed heavenly dragon, Song Zanbu, Aride, and Zhong and I, who were being held tightly by chaos, saw that Qin Feng was only using one hand to deal with them. As the elites among the primeval gods, no one had ever dared to look down on them, not even the primeval sovereigns. The six of them were super experts that far surpassed the half-step golden immortal realm. 6 bursts of power erupted, instantly shattering the chaos cage formed by the giant hand. Qin Feng's expression didn't change. He was a supreme Tao ancestor after fusing with the connate creation Great Tao. Under the Great Tao, the profundities of creation could refine the earth, water, fire, and wind. It wasn't impossible for him to create a new world. Universal annihilation. Qin Feng pointed his finger and 6 vast torrents flew out. Endless creation divine light shone. It was as if the vast sky had suddenly been squeezed and compressed into a radius of less than a few meters. It was as if the world had turned into a furnace. Evil Dominator, West Earth's Totem, nine-headed heavenly dragon, Songzan Debut, Aride, and Zhong and I were all powerful experts, but in front of this palm, they were like ants. His heaven-defying power and all his treasures seemed to have been refined by this magnificent divine light. The great Tao laws were completely suppressed, losing their effect. Amidst the enraged bellows, the evil lord, West Earth's Totem, the nine-headed heavenly dragon, Songzan Debut, Aristide, and Zhong Ni's bodies were forcibly refined inch by inch. Their bodies seemed to be getting shorter and shorter. Bastard, let us go! The 6 of them roared again and again, erupting with waves of divine multicolored light. They wanted to break through that furnace-like cage, but it was to no avail. Qin Feng's expression was calm. Admittedly, the 6 of them were very powerful. Even an ordinary 16th stage lord would have a headache if they encountered them. However, he was no ordinary overgod. His powers had already reached the 9th heavenly layer of apex after his unification. He was far more powerful than any of the 6 of them in the first place, and after his unification, he was even slightly more powerful than some veteran overgods. The 6 of them were about to be refined to death. At this moment, a stream of light flew down from the void. The void rippled, and a faintly discernible pitch-black stream of light appeared. A slender black-robed man with a body as black as iron appeared. This was an extremely terrifying expert with a domineering aura surrounding him. "Boss, help us! Help us kill him!" Seeing his appearance, the 3 great lords of the Third Realm, Songzan Debut, Aride, and Zhong and I were overjoyed. 3 idiots! The black figure shouted angrily. Songzan Debut, Aride, and Zhong Ni's expressions turned bitter. They did not dare to say anything. "Fellow Taoist, can you let these 3 good-for-nothings go for the sake of this monarch's face?" Qin Feng stopped refining the 6 of them and looked at the newcomer. Although the newcomer was not a Wushang Tao ancestor, he had a terrifying aura that was not inferior to a Tao ancestor's. There was also a strange power that was different from great paths but not inferior to great paths, a refined heavenly Tao? Qin Feng's heart skipped a beat. Heavenly Tao was a deformed monster born from the great changes in the world. However, it was undeniable that these heavenly Tao monsters were not weak. They were comparable to 16th stage Lord. Every refined heavenly Tao could control a portion of great path God rules. They were considered Tao ancestors in an incomplete state. When Qin Feng landed in the immemorial void great universe, he had heard that heavenly Tao had been born in the immemorial void great universe several times. Moreover, they had been killed by several great lords. Several of them had already mastered a portion of heavenly Tao God rules. Obviously, this was a super ancient expert in the immemorial void great universe. He was a terrifying expert who had refined a heavenly Tao. Such a super expert might be weaker than a Tao ancestor in terms of realm, but in terms of combat power, he was not inferior to a Wushang Tao ancestor. I've just entered this world. Although I'm an outsider, I can't go too far and attract the hostility of all the cultivators in the immemorial void great universe, Qin Feng said as he pondered in his heart. Well, for your sake, I'll let this matter pass. With a wave of his sleeve, Song Zhendebu, Aride, and Zhong and I flew out. The black-robed man grabbed them and waved his sleeve. Song Zhendebu, Aride, and Zhong and I landed behind him. Thank you, fellow cultivator. With a flash, a black light swept across Song Zhendebu, Aride, and Zhong and I. It enveloped the three of them and disappeared instantly. They flew into the depths of the great universe. Something strange. This doesn't seem like old Chu's character. In the heaven realm, above Zhongzhou City, the purple-robed young man in the form of the purple-gold divine dragon muttered. Based on old Chu's character, he would kill anyone who touched his people regardless of whether they were in the right or wrong. Why is he so polite today? Could it be that his temper has been castrated after a few rounds in the reincarnation cycle? Castrated my ass. He's arrogant and overbearing, but he's not stupid. Only a small part of his original spirit has awakened. It's completely an empty shell. Most of his original spirit is still in the reincarnation cycle. He can't beat him at all. On the side, a five-colored phoenix flew up and glanced at the purple-robed young man. On the side, a heaven-rank expert frowned. If that's the case, why would the peerless emperor let Song Zhendebu, Aride, and Zhong and I off so easily? This is the shrewdness of the peerless emperor. He has just broken through and is an extraterrestrial expert. If he forcibly dealt with Song Zhendebu, Aride, and Zhong and I, the three emperors of the third realm, it would certainly intimidate a group of people. However, it would also attract the hostility of the experts of various realms. The little phoenix landed on the shoulder of the celestial phoenix maiden and looked at Chen Nan. Chen Nan, do you want to save the evil dominator, the nine-headed heavenly dragon, and the Western Earthting too? Chen Nan glanced at the little phoenix, the evil dominator, the nine-headed heavenly dragon, and the Western Earthting too. Although the Western Earthting too was evil in nature, they had once risked their lives to help the ancient gods destroy the strongest heavenly Tao. There's no hurry to save the three of them. Have you noticed something that we have been neglecting all this time? Chen Nan lowered his head, looked at the crowd, and said in a low voice. Haven't you noticed that with the appearance of the seventh emperor of the ancient era, there seems to be one less place for us to break through? In the void, after Chu Xiangyu left, Qin Feng casually sealed the remaining evil dominator, the nine-headed heavenly dragon, and the Western Earthting too, and disappeared in a flash. After advancing to the 16th level Tao ancestor, there were several consecutive battles. He needed to find a place to comprehend this completely unfamiliar mysterious domain. Chapter 1432. Chen Nan, did you discover something? Little Phoenix, Baby Dragon, Hidden Dragon, and the others looked at Chen Nan with a trace of shock. It was as if a light had appeared in his mind. The stronger 7 absolute fairy, celestial phoenix maiden, demon master, heavenly demon, and the others seemed to have sensed something. They had touched upon an unknown truth in the depths of heaven and earth. Chen Nan frowned, his expression changed, and he smiled bitterly. I've always thought that these extraterrestrial experts came to our great world to plunder resources. Until just now, when I saw that expert break through with my own eyes, I realized that we were wrong. We've always been wrong. And very wrong. Chen Nan, you noticed it too? Suddenly, there seemed to be several wills descending from the void, and a sigh seemed to come from the end of the long river of time. Time Master God, old tyrant, Xuanzang, Nangong Siener, and that old fart? That golden chubby little dragon's eyes widened, staring at the several experts who had suddenly appeared above Central Continent City, emitting the terrifying aura of an ancient monarch. Mighty and virtuous, I didn't expect you to be like this. Among the several figures, the leader of the group was a smiling old man. He grabbed the little dragon's fat body and gave it a good rub. Omami Tofu, you wretched old man, let go of me! The dragon struggled with all his might. At this moment, several fragrant winds appeared, and 2 graceful and exquisite figures appeared. Moon Goddess, Dugu Xiaoye? Seeing the 2 goddesses appear, a portion of the heaven rank experts on Zhongzhou City hurriedly bowed. These 2 were not only the most terrifying heaven-defying kings, but they also had a terrifying identity. They were the wife and daughter of the primordial taboo king, Dugu Baitian. Senior Moon Goddess, Xiaoye. Chen Nan was a little embarrassed. Seeing the expression on Chen Nan's face, many primordial gods' faces were slightly mischievous. The Dugu family's relationship was a little messy. Everyone knew that the primordial taboo god, Dugu Baitian, was an undefeated genius, and many goddesses had entanglements with him. Whether it was the primordial era's number 1 goddess, Moon Goddess, or the number 1 witch, Xian, they were all captured by him. After so many years, the relationship between the number 1 goddess and the number 1 witch could be said to be subtle. Obviously, the witch should be suppressed by the number 1 goddess. Dugu Baitian had 4 children. Heavenly demon, Dugu Xiaoye, Dugu Xiaobai, Dugu Shaoxian. Among them, the heavenly demon and Dugu Xiaoye were born from the moon god. Sorceress Xian also gave birth to 2 children for the ancient taboo emperor Dugu Baitian, a son and a daughter. They were Dugu Xiaobai and Dugu Shaoxian. Among them, Dugu Shaoxian had been almost destroyed in the ancient war before the strongest heavenly Tao was destroyed. In the end, she was revived for Chen Nan. In his previous life, Chen Nan was Dugu Xiaobai, the son of Dugu Baitian. The moon goddess smiled faintly as if she didn't see the awkwardness on Chen Nan's face. Chen Nan, tell me all your guesses. Hearing this, Chen Nan let out a sigh of relief. There is one thing that all of us should know. The 6 archaic sovereigns have encountered a peerless enemy and are currently engaged in a fierce battle with this enemy in outer space. Yes, we all know this. Those are the 6 ancient monarchs from beyond the heavens. Their strength surpasses even Dugu and Ancestor Qin. The moon goddess looked solemn. The others, such as the old tyrant, Silver Dragon Gallus' father, the purple gold divine dragon's father-in-law, the ancestral god of lust Nangong Siener, and the current Buddhist ancestor of the 5th realm, Xuanzang, all nodded. They were all aware of these secrets. The situation was very grim for the archaic void universe. Chen Nan continued. Actually, I had some guesses about that after meeting the 6 ancient monarchs from beyond the heavens. However, this guess was only completely clear after seeing that expert break through. Chen Nan smiled bitterly. In the end, if we have to blame something, we have to blame the fact that our archaic void universe doesn't have a complete inheritance beyond the heaven-defying level. Ancestor Qin, Father, Ghost Lord, Demon Lord, and Human King were able to break through completely by coincidence. Coincidentally, when the heavenly Tao was destroyed and reformed, They grasped the momentary spiritual light of the destruction of the heavenly Tao and broke through. The space-time great God said, "That's right. They have been reincarnating between the heavens and earth all these years. It wasn't until 1,000 years ago that they returned from the heavens and earth one after another. They didn't even have time to summarize and pass down their experience of breaking through. Then, they were attacked by the experts from beyond the heavens. They were indeed fated to be like this." Elder Dong Hai sighed. He was also one of the archaic gods. Like Demon Lord and Dugu Batian, he was also an ancient expert. Back then, they had created the Little Six Tao. However, watching the others break through while he was still shackled and stuck in a bottleneck was not a good feeling. Chen Nan nodded slightly. He looked a little depressed. The others had returned after the destruction of the heavenly Tao. However, he was different. Over the years, he had controlled the heavenly Tao and tried many methods to break through the bottleneck. However, although the many methods allowed him to break through the limit again and again, he felt that he was getting further and further away from the archaic monarch realm. Back then, before the destruction of the heavenly Tao, he had just broken through to the heaven-defying level. In terms of foundation, he was not comparable to the 6 ancient experts at the heaven-defying level. Otherwise, he might have become the 7th peerless monarch in the heavens and earth. Seeing this, the 7 absolute fairies stepped forward and held one of Chen Nan's hands. Feeling the softness of her hands, Chen Nan's mood improved. His expression changed slightly, and he looked around at the primeval gods and said, "In fact, the realms after the heaven-defying level are already clear. Just like how that expert broke through, you should choose a great Tao to fuse with or refine directly to break through. However, at our level, we know that there are only a few great Taos in the heavens and earth, especially the 49 great Taos at the top. That means that there can only be 49 monarchs in the heavens and earth, or the Tao ancestors that the extraterritorial experts speak of. Now, there are already 7 Tao ancestors in the heavens and earth. Each great Tao can only have 1 Tao ancestor, so there are only 42 positions left." 42 positions? Many of the experts' faces changed. 42 positions seemed to be a lot, but in fact, it was not enough. One had to know that before the archaic heavenly Tao was destroyed, there were many old antiques that remained. There were also those ancestor gods who had completed their breakthroughs in the past few years. Once they saw through the mystery, they would definitely rush to fuse with or refine a great Tao to become a supreme Tao ancestor. However, when they thought of some juniors rushing to fuse with the Tao and riding on their heads, many archaic monarchs could not help but feel a chill run down their spines. In addition to those juniors, there were also the extraterritorial experts. The extraterritorial experts' purpose in coming to the archaic void great cosmos was very clear. They probably came to the archaic void great cosmos because their own great cosmos had run out of options. Chapter 1433. Since we understand, we have to go back and prepare immediately. Goodbye. The group of primordial gods felt so pressured that they almost couldn't breathe properly. After Chen Nan confirmed their guesses, they immediately returned to their lairs and prepared to be the first to reach Tao integration. The space-time god, Nangong Xian Devil Master, Great Demon, and Hidden Dragon all returned to the Demon Master Palace to comprehend the mysteries of the Great Tao and break through as soon as possible. The Heavenly Demon, Old Tyrant, Xuanzong, and the others also left in a hurry. Only the Moon Goddess, Dugu Xiaoye, 7 Absolute Fairy, Dragon Baby, Little Phoenix, and the others were left. Looking at the people who were still there, they looked at each other. Chen Nan smiled helplessly. "It seems like you all already know what I want to do. Let's go and pay a visit to the 7th king." Everyone smiled. Sharpening a knife wouldn't delay the work of cutting wood. If they could obtain a part of the method of breaking through from the 7th king, they would undoubtedly be one step ahead. At least, it seemed like the method of breaking through from the outer realm was much more moderate than the method of breaking through from the outer realm. The heaven and earth continent was vast. Although many countries had been born in the center, they were only evolved from a portion of the living beings from the previous era. Whether it was the east or the west, there were endless territories outside of the wilderness. That place was filled with violent chaos energy. Countless ferocious beasts and terrifying evil creatures lived there. There was also connate primordial origin chi that destroyed everything. Other than the vast wilderness, there were actually many pieces of land floating in the chaos and primordial origin chi. After Qin Feng attained the Tao, it was in the human world, on a mountain that belonged to the wilderness but was close to the state of Qin. He opened up the human world Tao field. Amidst the hazy chaos Yuan Qi, a faint spirit light shone. An aura that belonged to the great Tao rotated slowly, wearing down the innate chaos Yuan Qi and the extremely precious innate primordial chaos Yuan Qi. The Fortune Divine Peak. There were immortal peaks and steep ridges. Boreal grass and Lingji mushrooms grew on the ground. The roots were connected to the earth and the peak was connected to the sky. There were green pines and green willows, purple chrysanthemums and red plum blossoms. There were green peaches and ginkgos, beasts and foxes that listened to the teachings. Bears tore their tails, leopards danced and apes cried. Dragons and tigers roared, phoenixes and luans flew. The rhinoceros gazed at the moon and the seahorse neighed. Strange birds are ever-changing, immortal birds are rare in the world. Strange pines and ancient cypresses, precious trees reflect oil embankments. The red sun is near the mountains, the stream is wide and the water is low. Secluded Wonderland courtyard, the scenery was even better than the Jade Lake. At the center of the divine peak, a Taoist palace had been erected amidst the lush green willows. Green Lotus Palace. A young Taoist's face was expressionless. He was neither good nor evil, neither right nor wrong, neither gratitude nor resentment, neither joy nor sorrow. He just sat there silently with a cloud above his head. Within the cloud there was a jade-green seed. The vast cloud greedily absorbed the incomparably rich innate chaos energy and innate primordial chaos energy, filling up the green seed even more. That was the grade 12 green lotus of fortune that had been destroyed by the combined efforts of the 6 sovereign kings. Its origin had already been reborn into a seed. At this moment, the green lotus Tao ancestor was nurturing it, absorbing the mother of all creation's innate chaos Yuan Qi and innate primordial Yuan Qi. It had undergone a nirvana and seemed to have completed an evolution. There was actually a wisp of innate creation nascent embryo nurturing within it. This Tao ancestor sat cross-legged with a sheathless long sword on his knees. The sword seemed to be condensed from the innate destruction origin that could destroy all things. It was being refined and nurtured by the Tao ancestor. Suddenly, the young Taoist opened his eyes. A wisp of crystal-clear divine light flowed slowly in his eyes. The Tao ancestor realm is really mysterious and unusual. He sighed softly. Qin Feng was a little addicted to the mysterious and abstruse realm. A grade 16 sovereign god. Although the Tao ancestor realm was only half a step away from a half-step golden immortal, with the power he controlled now, he could easily annihilate thousands of his previous self. After reaching the Tao ancestor realm, the next step is to perfectly control the great Tao that one has merged with. His expression changed slightly. Above his head, a crystal-clear jade-green lotus flower that seemed to contain the birth of all things and the mystery of creation bloomed. It floated in the cloud above his head. It was a grade 6 lotus. In addition, there were 2 other hazy and shapeless lotus flowers swaying in the air, merging with Tao to form the 3 flowers. Those were the 3 flowers that represented the golden immortal Tao. Forming a lotus flower represented merging with a great Tao. The jade-green grade 6 lotus represented the innate creation great Tao of this realm. The grade 6 lotus represented the degree of Qin Feng's mastery of this great Tao. Perfection was grade 9. In fact, most Tao ancestors who had just merged with Tao would only have grade 3 lotus. Some with deeper foundations would only have grade 4 lotus. It was rare for them to have grade 5 lotus. Qin Feng's grade 6 lotus was far superior to many Tao ancestors who had just merged with Tao. He did have such foundations. He controlled the creator space, traversed many worlds, and comprehended the divine laws of the myriad worlds. Once the first grade 9 lotus was perfected, Qin Feng could begin merging with the second Tao seed and enter the 17th grade Chaos Sovereign God realm. In Qin Feng's opinion, perfecting the innate creation great Tao was not difficult. He believed that he would be able to achieve it soon. However, merging with the opposite Tao seed would be a little difficult. This realm also had 4 innate Taos. Currently, there were 7 Tao ancestors. They were his own innate creation Tao ancestor, Human King innate sacred virtue Tao ancestor, Ghost Lord innate nirvana Tao ancestor, Demon Lord innate massacre Tao ancestor, innate fate destruction Tao ancestor, innate strength Tao ancestor Qinzhan, and innate chaos Tao ancestor Dugu Baitian. Qin Feng controlled innate creation. The opposite Tao seeds he could merge with were the innate termination Tao seeds of slaughter, destruction, freezing, and nirvana. They could also be innate yin and yang. It seemed like there were many choices. However, Qin Feng could clearly see that he had no choice. In this realm, there were too many pinnacle super great lords. After witnessing his Tao integration, he believed that with the wisdom of those super great lords, they would quickly summarize the Tao integration dermic formulation. Soon, new Tao ancestors would be born. And it would not be just 1, but 2. And if he wanted to merge with the opposite Tao seed, he first had to perfect grade 9 innate creation before he could consider Tao integration. Merging with the opposite Tao seed again was not as easy as achieving the Tao. He had to deduce the true legacy cultivation technique of the opposite great Tao seed again. In addition, he had to accumulate all over again. Without hundreds of thousands of years or even millions of years of accumulation, it was not scary at all. Even though Qin Feng had the Master God space to rely on at least 10,000 years ago, it would not have been possible. However, Qin Feng was not disheartened. He already had a way out. The Spirit Sea realm had already advanced to the Spirit Sea Void Great Cosmos. As long as he firmly controlled the Spirit Sea Void Great Cosmos, it would not be impossible for him to advance to grade 17. Even if this realm's plan did not succeed, he could still change to another option. What he had to do now was to comprehend the myriad world God laws as soon as possible. Only by comprehending the myriad world God laws could the Tao ancestors of this void great cosmos leave the great cosmos and enter other great cosmoses. The Spirit Sea realm was about to advance. Personally witnessing a great cosmos advance to a void great cosmos was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If he could witness this scene with his own eyes, it would definitely be the greatest resource for him to advance to perfect grade 9 in a short time. Chapter 1434. What was the myriad universe divine law? It was a part of the universal Great Tao rules. The Great Tao rules of every void great cosmos were unique, but there was a part that was universal. This part of the universal myriad universe divine law was spread throughout the endless chaotic void. Ordinary Tao ancestors couldn't leave their void great cosmos when they had just reached Tao unification. Only those who had condensed the myriad universe divine law could walk out of their void great cosmos and not fall from the position of Tao ancestor. This wasn't an easy task. Many Tao ancestors hadn't comprehended the myriad universe divine law for tens of thousands of years, or even hundreds of thousands of years. However, to Qin Feng, this matter was not difficult at all. He had the creator space, which had the ability to cut through and deduce the myriad universe divine law. In addition, Qin Feng had several divine clones before he had attained Tao. He wasn't like ordinary Tao ancestors who were restricted by heaven and earth and couldn't leave the void great cosmos to comprehend the myriad universe divine law. They could only use the stupid method of spirit clone reincarnating. To a certain extent, the origin divine world was ahead of the primitive great cosmos in this aspect. Qin Feng's auspicious cloud spread out and slowly merged with the creator space. Above the sixth-grade lotus, there was a huge illusory world that merged with the lotus. The creator space had changed greatly after Qin Feng had attained Tao. Like Qin Feng, it seemed to have undergone a baptism of the great Tao. Now it was slowly giving birth to innate chaos yuan qi. In the huge overgod void, countless innate lifeforms were born, absorbing the innate chaos yuan qi to strengthen themselves. In terms of power, when Qin Feng had successfully reached Tao unification, it had already crossed the threshold of the chaos-level creator space and possessed part of the power of the chaos-level creator space. As the lotus merged with the creator space, it greedily comprehended the mysteries of the chaos-level creator space. At the same time, it used the creator space to capture the special rules of the myriad universe divine law. The lotus's aura was changing visibly above his primordial spirit cloud. It was as if the illusory world of the myriad universe divine law was revolving and gradually integrated. The emerald lotus was transforming into a gray void. This change was very obvious. Strands of gray divine light had already begun to appear on the jade-green lotus flower. He believed that it would not be long before it completely transformed into the myriad world god laws. Wushuang Dao ancestor practiced Dao techniques and comprehended the mysteries. Rolling clear qi permeated the Dao palace and evolved into green lotuses that swayed in the wind. Purple mist rose, neon lights rolled, rainbows hung in the sky, and celestial music floated in the air. In the mountains, some white deers, white cranes, spirit beasts, and fairies closed their eyes to comprehend this rare opportunity. Suddenly, Qin Feng's expression changed. He raised his head and looked outside the mountain. Looking around, Qin Feng realized that he seemed to be the only one in this training hall. He didn't even have a disciple who was worth mentioning. At this moment, a clear voice came from outside the mountain. Dao Ancestor Creation, Chun Nan is here to pay a visit. I hope that Dao Ancestor Creation will grant me an audience. That was fast. Qin Feng smiled when he heard the voice. Qin Feng flicked his sleeve. In the mountain, the thick clouds retreated, and a path extended outside the mountain. Outside the mountain, a stream of light flew out from the void. Esteemed guest, your presence brings light to my humble abode. What a treasured land full of immortal aura. This Dao ancestor is also a refined person? Chun Nan's eyes lit up. He saw that the mountain was dotted with orchids and green plants, beautiful purple and red, full of vitality. It could be seen from this that the creation Dao ancestor who lived here wasn't a ferocious and evil person. A moment later, he arrived at the mountainside. Surrounded by pine trees and green willows, there was a Taoist palace outside. Walking through the palace gate, he saw the Dao ancestor creation sitting silently. Clouds appeared above his head, and a lotus floated in the clouds. Above the lotus, there seemed to be a boundless world. That huge world seemed to be able to stop the movement of the sun, moon, and galaxy. It was the geographical network of mountains and rivers, suppressing chaos and primordial chaos. Fellow Chun Nan, why aren't you in the Heaven Realm's central continent city comprehending the mysteries of the great Tao? What brings you to my Green Lotus Fortune Palace today? Qin Feng glanced at Chun Nan, smiled faintly, and pointed at him. In the main hall, clouds rose and turned into a cloud bed opposite him, sitting on the same level as him. Dao ancestor, you don't beat around the bush in front of famous people. You must be an extraterrestrial, right? Chern Nan did not sit down immediately. His expression was indifferent. Someone like a Tao ancestor should be an important figure in the extraterrestrial, right? Qin Feng smiled faintly. Brother Chern Nan, you think too highly of me. In the untainted great cosmos, there are dozens of Tao ancestors like me. A connate Tao ancestor like me, who has just attained Tao, is at most a junior. These extraterrestrial experts did not enter the wilderness great universe, so they would never know how powerful the wilderness great universe was. A realm like the primordial world was probably ranked in the top 10 among the many realms in the 33 heavens. However, if fellow Taoist Chern Nan has any thoughts about the primordial great cosmos, I may be able to convey them on your behalf. Although the Buddhist sect may not be considered the most powerful force in the primordial great cosmos, we can still speak for the Tao ancestor. Sir, please don't misunderstand. I am not here on behalf of anyone. I just want to make a personal deal with the Tao ancestor. Chern Nan waved his hand. However, he was still a little shocked. Dozens of Tao ancestors. The wilderness great universe that was invading was really terrifying. Qin Feng did not think much of it. In fact, he already had some guesses about Chern Nan's purpose for coming. I wonder what kind of deal Taoist Chern Nan wants to make with me? I want your wilderness great universe's Tao attainment mystic technique. Chern Nan's eyes flickered as he looked straight at Qin Feng. Sure. To Chern Nan's surprise, Qin Feng agreed right away. Are you not going to consider it? Chern Nan's expression froze as he looked at Qin Feng in astonishment. This was really beyond his expectations. In his opinion, the Tao attainment mystic technique was invaluable no matter where it was. It had an extraordinarily important meaning. No one could easily obtain it. I don't need to think about it. Qin Feng smiled faintly as a glimmer of light flashed in his eyes. Indeed, the Tao attainment mystic technique was extremely precious no matter where it was. However, in Qin Feng's opinion, the primordial void great universe's experts and superlords would deduce it sooner or later after witnessing his Tao attainment mystic technique. It was just a matter of time. At the very least, he might be able to make an exchange with those extraterrestrial experts. Although Qin Feng smiled in his heart, he changed the topic. However, I can give you the wilderness great universe's Tao attainment mystic technique, but I have a condition. Chapter 1435. In the primordial void universe, in an unknown land of chaos, pure chaos was everywhere. There were no signs of life, and it was filled with boundless chaos storms. It was rather terrifying. But strangely, deep in the chaos storms, there were islands made of fragments of chaos and primordial chaos. There were palaces everywhere, and they faintly emitted a terrifying aura. In the middle of this land where the heavenly secrets were in chaos, there was a gigantic Tao palace. In the chaos heavens, when Qin Feng successfully validated his Tao in the central Tao palace, a stern-looking middle-aged man in azure-colored clothes had a gloomy expression. How is it, Chaos King? Did you figure out anything? By the side there were 10 gigantic thrones. Among them, there were several thrones with chaos auras floating. This was the primordial void universe, the territory of the remnant races of chaos. Before the heavenly Tao's major calamity, Dugu Baitian, Fiend Lord, Ancestor Chen, Ghoul Lord, Human King, and other heaven conquerors had wiped out all the remnant races of chaos that attempted to protect the heavenly Tao. Most of them were sacrificed to the heaven conquerors. But with the heavenly Tao's reorganization, the primordial void universe gave birth to a new world. While Chern Nan used the new heavenly Tao to revive Dugu Baitian, Fiend Lord, Ghoul Lord, Ancestor Chen, Human King, and company, the remnant races of chaos were also secretly reforming their marks and reincarnating. It was especially so for the 10 strongest chaos nobles of the remnant races of chaos. A few of them had already returned to their peak strength. It was especially so for the strongest Chaos King. By coincidence, he had devoured the azure sky mark that revived him. His strength far exceeded that of the typical Chaos nobles. His strength was in no way weaker than some pinnacle superlords. In fact, in ancient times, the Chaos King was the strongest existence of the remnant races of Chaos. He was in no way inferior to Dugubatian, Fiend Lord, or Ancestor Chun. He once had immense ambitions, even wanting to form his own Chaos Heavens. He would represent the original heavenly Tao and be the controller of the primordial void universe. At that moment, King Yu Luo, King Many-Eyed, and King of Darkness had returned from their thrones. Although the three kings had returned, they had clearly lost their Chaos Fiend bodies of the remnant races of Chaos. They had reincarnated as humans. The three Chaos Marquises were still troubled by this point. Amongst those present, even the King of Chaos himself had completely lost the indestructible Chaos body unique to the remnant of Chaos. The techniques of those Xenorace experts are indeed abnormally profound. It won't be long before I'll be able to break through. The King of Chaos had an indifferent look on his face. His aura was noble, as if he was shrouded in chaotic chi. He was like the supreme ruler of the heavenly Tao. That would be for the best. If His Highness the King of Chaos can prove his Tao, the forgotten tribes of Chaos would have a backer. Even if the 6 primordial sovereigns return, we would be able to walk out of this place without fear of being suppressed by the primordial gods. The 3 Chaos nobles were overjoyed. In fact, they might even make a comeback and become the supreme race of the ancient era. Then, his eyes were filled with hatred. How dare the lowly ancient gods steal the primordial void universe from us, the lost tribes of Chaos? One day we, the noble lost tribes of Chaos, will take it back and drive those lowly ancient gods back to hell. At this moment, in another chaotic dark world, a vast primordial chaos filled the air. This ancient land was located in the depths of the universe. Those huge stars were like islands in the Chaos Sea. On one of the huge stars there was a magnificent palace. There were green mountains and clear waters, huge lakes, and clusters of flowers. There were countless spiritual roots and spiritual beasts. The scene was like a heavenly palace. The palace was located on a huge spiritual vein. It was a Chaos spiritual vein, a huge spiritual vein that was superior to God-level spiritual veins. It exuded connate chaotic chi. Even a master god would drool at the sight of such a Chaos spiritual vein and would not be able to resist taking action. The ancient palace exuded an ancient aura, but it did not appear to be in decline or dilapidated due to the erosion of time. Instead, it still exuded an immortal radiance. At this moment, an expert with a sharp face and starry eyes opened his eyes in the palace. A merciless aura flowed around him, as if he was the merciless heavenly Tao that regarded all beings as ants. He witnessed Qin Feng's unification with his own eyes. Countless sparkling lights flickered in his eyes. As the lights collided, an aura gradually emerged from his body. He was like a Taoist expert, transforming into a half-step golden immortal of the primordial void universe. At the same time, an aura of the great Tao gradually emerged. At this moment, there was a black-covered heavenly book on his knees, Record of Sages Unruffled. In the endless starry sky, there were 2 stars that were the leaders of the billions of stars in the universe. They were the Sun Star and the Moon Star. The Moon Star had always been the territory of the Chun family of the immemorial void universe. In this universe, the Chun family was without a doubt the most powerful family. The Chun family produced many experts in every generation. Among the 6 Archean kings, the Chun family had 2. Ancestor Chun and Chun Zhan. Every one of the 8 souls of the Chun family was extremely talented, especially the 10th generation that produced Chun Nan, a terrifying existence who controlled the heavenly Tao. When Qin Feng was unification, There were also a few gazes on the moon star that were watching the changes in the depths of the immemorial void universe. At the same time, they were also working together to deduce. They were the 8 souls of the Chun family, the 8 ancestors of the Chun family. The aura of the 8 ancestors was not inferior to some of the ancient kings. In addition to these 8 progenitors, there were also 8 extraordinary women. These 8 extraordinary women were the wives of the 8 souls of the Chun clan. Each of them was an ancient, extraordinary woman with outstanding talent. At this moment, a few of them had reached the level of some of the top immemorial gods. At the moment when Qin Feng was unification, many of the immemorial gods' auras were tainted with a trace of the great Tao aura. They were already on the verge of unification. The breakthrough method of the primitive universe is indeed mysterious. In the Green Lotus Palace, Chun Nan's face flickered with a sigh. He flipped through the strands of information in his mind. He could not hide the trace of joy in his eyes. After completing the transaction and getting what he wanted, Chun Nan did not delay. After half a day, he left Green Lotus Peak with the evil dominator, Shi Tu Ting Tu, and the 9-headed heavenly dragon. In fact, the conditions of Tao ancestor fate creation were unexpectedly simple. It was just a genuine cultivation technique of the immemorial void universe's major sections. This kind of thing was extremely precious to any sect, but to Chun Nan, it just so happened that he didn't lack this kind of cultivation method. Before the heavenly Tao was destroyed, he was a famous thief. He and the little dragon had robbed most of the sects, so he didn't lack any cultivation method. These cultivation techniques were of little value to Chun Nan, but they were of great value to Qin Feng. Above the mountain peak, clouds and mist lingered. Qin Feng's eyes were filled with a trace of a smile. The attacking techniques of this world were extremely fierce. Qin Feng had seen it and was already envious. This time, he finally got what he wanted. If he could fuse the cultivation techniques of this world and create his own ultimate technique, not only would his cultivation level rise, his battle prowess would also increase. At the same time, the unique skill of this world also contained the essence of the rules of the immemorial void universe. It would be of great help to him in condensing the myriad universe's divine rules. After watching Chun Nan leave, Qin Feng was ready to return to the Tao Palace and cultivate in seclusion to comprehend the various cultivation techniques and unique skills, as well as the myriad universe's divine rules. At this moment, a huge phenomenon suddenly erupted between heaven and earth. In the next moment, the myriad universe trembled violently and resonated with the great Tao. Chapter 1436. Someone is trying to reach Tao integration so soon? Turning around, Qin Feng looked into the sky, unable to hide his surprise. Who is it? Who is trying to break through? In the second realm, in a huge space-time lair, this was a dangerous place where countless space-time flows in reverse. It was extremely chaotic. Space-time God was surprised. He had just returned to his lair from the heaven realm. Could it be a powerhouse from outside? Space-time God frowned. In his impression, the native powerhouses of the void great cosmos had just found their way. It should be impossible for them to reach Tao validation in such a short time. Who is it? Is another powerhouse from outside starting to break through? Beyond the heavens, in the primal chaos, within Chaos Divine Palace, the King of Chaos opened his god eyes. His sharp gaze swept over the entire void cosmos, as if he wanted to find where the phenomena were erupting. Not only him, but several other King of Chaos also had cold gazes. It was fine if the first powerhouse to break through was an outsider. They didn't understand what this meant and were taken advantage of by Tao ancestor creation. Now they absolutely couldn't allow any outsider to break through to the Tao ancestor or monarch realm. We can't let them succeed in Tao integration. Terrifying invisible killing intent filled the Chaos Divine Palace. It seemed to disperse the aura of chaos that hadn't dissipated for billions of years. Is someone trying to reach Tao validation again? In the human realm, many experts from outside hiding in various countries or in the depths of the wilderness all had different expressions. Some were gloomy, some were gritting their teeth, and some were furious. Qin Feng's sudden Tao validation had already made many of them burn with anger. But now, someone was trying to reach Tao integration again. This was simply a headache for them. One had to know that there were only a limited number of innate Taos in the world. Every additional Tao ancestor meant that those who came later would have less chances. On Green Lotus Peak, Qin Feng carefully comprehended the great Tao of the myriad worlds. The three flowers revolved and merged with Tao. It seems like someone is merging with the innate great Tao? After the great Tao of the myriad worlds shook, there was a grand and solemn chant that seemed to be both life and death, withered and flourishing. Then, in all the worlds, trillions of greater worlds and countless lesser worlds, the stars in the sky seemed to shift, and the Big Dipper was exceptionally bright. Vaguely, the 9 underworlds appeared. A yellow spring with no beginning and no end swept out from the depths of the endless darkness. The terrifying aura of life and death entangled with each other. It was as if billions of living beings, all sentient beings, were submitting to the yellow spring. The Tao integration stage phenomenon, life and death cycle, 9 underworlds open. The innate Tao of life and death. At this moment, Qin Feng opened his eyes, and a look of surprise flickered in them. The innate Tao of life and death was one of the innate Tao of death and innate nirvana. It was an extremely important connate Tao. It's that old man. On the lunar star, the 8 souls of the Chen family spoke in unison. Chen clan's old 8 said with a smile. I really didn't expect that old fellow to see through the mystery so quickly and comprehend the Tao validation method. The second ancestor of the Chen family said. He's one of the oldest primordial gods in the world after all. In terms of seniority, he's even above Dugu Baitian. All in all, we might not agree to it if it were anyone else, but this senior is a great help to us. It would be best if he could reach the Tao integration stage. That's how it should be. This time, we can't let anyone disturb that senior's breakthrough. The expressions of the 8 souls of the Chen family changed, and a hint of murderous intent gradually appeared. In the endless chaos in the Taishang Tao Palace, Taishang's expression was cold as he sensed the source of the Tao tremor. A trace of bone-chilling, killing intent flashed past. Innate Tao of death, it's that old fart. He's the first to reach that level. He stood up, and his gaze followed the source of the Tao tremor to the eastern lands of the mortal world, the shore of the East Sea. However, he forced himself to suppress the killing intent in the next moment. His identity couldn't be exposed yet, at least not before he attained the Tao. It's the old man of the East Sea. He's broken through. On Zhongzhou City, the immortals and gods of the heaven realm were surprised and overjoyed when they saw the huge Tao integration phenomenon and sensed the extremely familiar aura. Little Phoenix pouted. I didn't expect that old fart to be the first to break through. Chen Nan, who had just returned to Zhongzhou City, exchanged a look with the 7 absolute fairy beside him. His eyes were also filled with surprise. How unexpected! Silver Dragon Jellies couldn't help but exclaim. This isn't strange. Senior East Sea is the most ancient existence in the world. When he attained the Tao, he was even before the 6 primordial kings. His foundation is peerless since ancient times. Chen Nan said with a smile. There was one more thing he didn't say. That old man of the East Sea was actually the supreme treasure of the 6 paths, the millstone of life and death. It contained the innate mysteries of life and death. His cultivation was originally higher than many primordial gods and was hovering on the verge of attaining the Tao. Even without the impact of Tao ancestor creation's Tao integration, with that old man's cultivation, attaining the Tao was only a matter of 1,000 years. Innate Tao of death. After witnessing the huge Tao integration phenomenon, several of the extraterrestrial experts had extremely ugly expressions. Some of them had gloomy expressions and wry smiles. Among them was the Jade Pure Palace's Tao ancestor East Pole. Everyone knew that the great East Tao ancestor had attained the Tao through connate life and death. He controlled the 10 worlds of salvation. 10 of his avatars had descended into the netherworld and controlled the cycle of reincarnation. They were the Heavenly Lord Jade Treasure Emperor of the East, the Heavenly Lord Profound True Myriad Blessings of the South, the Heavenly Lord Extreme Wondrous of the West, the Heavenly Lord Xuanshang of the North, the Heavenly Lord Yuchen of the North, the Heavenly Lord Immortal Dew of the Northeast, the Heavenly Lord Hao Xing of the Southeast, the Heavenly Lord Great Spirit Void of the Southwest, the Heavenly Lord Immeasurable Taihua of the Northwest, the Heavenly Lord Jade Mirage of the Upper Heavenly Lord, and the Heavenly Lord True Divine Cave of the Lower Heavenly Lord. The numinous treasure transforms into the 10 directions body, immeasurably saves the celestial from suffering. The Tao ancestor East Pole had just attained the Tao integration and didn't have the ability to attain the opposite Tao seed. He descended into the primordial void universe with the goal of controlling innate Tao of life and death again. Apart from the Tao ancestor East Pole, the future Buddha had the most helpless expression. That was Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva was also the future Buddha of the innate Tao of life and death. However, in the Chaos Great Universe, the innate Tao of life and death had been occupied by the Green Splendor Emperor of the East Pole, who was also the Tai 10 Directions world of salvation. He had never been able to attain the Tao integration. Moreover, he had made a great vow that he wouldn't become a Buddha until hell was empty. He had been hovering on the verge of attaining the Tao integration and was firmly suppressed by the Tao ancestor East Pole. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva had entered the immemorial void great universe and also had high hopes for the immemorial void great universe. He had never thought that someone would be the first to attain the Tao integration. Fortunately, it's only innate Tao of death. At the same time, the remaining extraterrestrial experts couldn't help but feel relieved. Chapter 1437. There were also some who looked regretful. For example, Tao ancestor Hutu was a perfected connate in virtue great Tao. She was an ancient Tao ancestor from the primordial era who had attained the Tao. She had always chosen the connate life and death Tao seed as the opposite Tao seed. However, the great East Tao ancestor had reached Tao integration before her in the Chaos Great Universe. Thus, she could only set her sights on the immemorial void great universe. Who would have thought that their hopes were about to be dashed again? On the green lotus peak, the clouds above Qin Feng's head seemed to have merged with the innate Tao of life and death. The innate Tao of life and death also contained the creation of the Tao of life and death. Such enlightenment was undoubtedly a great opportunity for him. It was visible to the naked eye that a small portion of the green lotus above his head had already been transformed by the gray, hazy light. In Qin Feng's eyes, the person who was merging the innate Tao of life and death was incredibly fast. Almost as soon as the Tao convergence phenomenon appeared, he intercepted the Tao of life and death and turned it into a Tao seed. A huge millstone of life and death appeared in the center of the Archean void universe. The cycle of life and death seemed to contain the two extremes of heaven and earth, black and white. The cycle of life and death was contained within it. In the Ling Hai realm, Wang Daoi was also refining the postnatal reincarnation Tao into the innate life and death Tao. Qin Feng had witnessed Wang Daoi's attainments in the reincarnation Tao. However, he was still a far cry from the legendary elder of the Eastern Sea. Even though Qin Feng was a half-step gold immortal, his accumulation in this step was far inferior to Old Man Dong Hai. At the very least, He could not intercept the great Tao and condense the Tao seed as easily as Elder Donghai. A lot of life and death air was everywhere. It was rolling in the center of the universe. It was like it was forming a giant black and white life and death Tai Chi symbol. In the middle of it was a giant life and death grinder. It was Old Man Donghai's Tao seed of life and death. Old Man Donghai's haggard figure appeared. His expression was calm and he was all smiles. If one hears the truth in the morning, one can die in the evening. It was as if his determination, decisiveness, bravery, and cautiousness had all turned into an indomitable will in his smile. He took a step forward and his body collapsed. The great millstone of life and death was destroyed, and his true spirit was destroyed. The void trembled violently. Waves of deathly cries that sounded like the cries of ghosts and the howls of gods filled the entire universe. It was the sound of the hearts of billions of living beings. The 3,000 great Tao of the myriad worlds were suddenly out of balance. In the eyes of countless cultivators, Elder Donghai's millstone of life and death was destroying itself inch by inch, collapsing into the darkness of death. Qin Feng's expression remained unchanged. This was the most crucial step in the innate life and death Tao. If he could break through death and be revived, then he would have completely merged with innate life and death. If he failed, then he would have completely fallen. All the primordial gods and experts from the outer realms were watching this scene closely. Some people hoped that Elder Donghai would succeed in his Tao integration, such as the Chern family, the Central Continent City, the Devil Lord Palace, the Space-Time God, and the other ancient gods. There were also people who hoped that Elder Donghai would fall and end everything. For example, the Chaos Nobles, Grand Supremes, extraterrestrial experts, as well as some ancient experts who were hiding in the dark and cultivated the Tao of death. Rumble. It was as if the center of the universe was collapsing. In the boundless omen of death, the millstone of life and death seemed to have completely shattered into pieces, disintegrating together with the innate life and death Tao seed and fusing into the void. The vision of life and death, 9 nether opening and resonance of the heavens, stopped abruptly. The entire primordial void universe fell into a dead silence, and the sun and moon lost their light. Did he fail? At this moment, many primordial gods were speechless. The world seemed to have returned to peace. On Chern Nan's side of the Central Continent City, many heaven-rank experts were silent. Dragon Baby, Little Phoenix, Purple Gold Divine Dragon, Zifeng and Alice were silent. On the city wall, Chern Nan and the 7 absolute fairies were silent for a long time, and there was an indescribable sorrow on their faces. Who would have thought that the old fart didn't die in the hands of the lost tribe of chaos and the strongest heavenly Tao, but he actually fell while attempting to reach the mythic realm. I had thought that the old fart would have the highest chance of becoming a primordial lord amongst us, but even he failed. The purple gold dragon sighed. This is the great Tao that cultivators of our generation pursue. On the path of the great Tao, we have no regrets even if we die 9 times. Chen Nan sighed. Although he was sorrowful, there was more determination on his face. He was like a boulder, indestructible in the chaos. However, just when the primordial gods and extraterrestrial experts thought that Elder Donghai had fallen, about 100 breaths later, suddenly, a golden light spread across the primordial void universe from the center of the primordial void universe, and countless heavenly music swept out along with the golden light. In the entire void universe, countless blood-red Permithamandaras fell from the sky, and billions of ghosts and gods roared in the 6 paths of reincarnation. The dim yellow 9 nether yellow springs shook violently, and purple chi came from the east for 30,000 miles. Golden lotuses appeared on the ground. All these phenomena were to celebrate the attainment of a great divine master. Above the myriad of lights, a huge wheel of life and death, as big as billions of mountains, spun slowly. On the millstone of life and death, A complete innate life and death Tao figure exuding endless mysteries of life and death walked out from the shadow of death. The great Tao of life and death drifted, not outside, not in, and not in the middle. It was extremely mysterious, as if the great Tao of life and death had descended upon the mortal world. Countless cultivators in the heavens and realms suddenly felt a sense of serenity. From death to life there was a great terror between life and death. Many ancient experts with weak Tao hearts suddenly felt as if they had put down a heavy burden. Distracting thoughts suddenly disappeared, and their hearts became clear. If they had experienced a trace of life and death, they would suddenly have an epiphany. Impermanence is the Tao of life and death. Life and death destroy oneself, and death is joy. After stepping through the gate of death and reincarnation, only today do I know that life and death are actually one family. My Tao is complete. That Wushang Tao ancestor walked out of the light, holding a huge millstone of life and death in his hand. As he swept his gaze across, it was as if the life and death of countless living beings in the heavens and realms were all in his eyes. At this moment, countless experts in the heavens and realms benefited from it. At this moment, many primordial gods in the heavens and realms bowed in unison. Congratulations to Elder Dong Hai for becoming a Tao Lord. The reborn Tao ancestor Dong Hai smiled. You're welcome. Thank you, fellow Taoists. When the primordial gods heard this, they immediately bowed again. Greetings, King of Life and Death, Tao ancestor Dong Hai. At this moment, the eighth primordial king of the primordial void universe, the Wushang Tao ancestor of life and death, was born. Life and death are actually one family. On the green lotus peak, Qin Feng clapped his hands and laughed. The great Tao of the Khanate Tao ancestor of life and death was prominent, and he benefited a lot. However, not everyone was like Qin Feng, who had already merged with the Tao and was sitting steadily on the fishing platform. Many extraterrestrial experts had ugly expressions. One could imagine that with the appearance of the Khanate Tao ancestor of life and death, it would be even more difficult for the extraterrestrial experts to attain Tao. However, this had nothing to do with Qin Feng for the time being. Half a day later, he was very surprised to receive a piece of shocking news from Zhuanti and the two Khanate Buddhas. Chapter 1438. In the depths of the endless void, two faint golden flowing lights entered the green lotus peak one after another. They entered the Tao Palace and were caught by Qin Feng. There wasn't much information recorded in the two faint golden flowing lights. They only mentioned two things. The first thing was that the immemorial void great universe was about to become one of the subsidiary great universes of the primitive great universe. The primitive great universe would have 4 spots for subsidiary great universes. At the same time, the primitive great universe had already negotiated with the 6 Tao ancestors of the immemorial void great universe. The two Khanate Buddha lords had vaguely mentioned that Tao ancestor Hong Jun had once appeared. Tao ancestor Hong Jun was the first Khanate Tao ancestor in the primitive great universe. He was the master of many Tao ancestors. Qin Feng had once suspected that Tao ancestor Hong Jun had already entered the legendary supreme and indestructible level 19 eternal Tao ancestor realm. Although Qin Feng had elevated to rank 16 Lord level, rank 16 Lord level was, in reality, only the mark of a powerhouse in the 33 heavens had just reached. The real rulers were the supreme rulers, which were the level 19 eternal Tao ancestors. They were the eternal and undefeatable overlords of the heavens. Naturally, the immemorial void great universe wouldn't be a match for the primitive great universe with the eternal Tao ancestor, who was suspected to be a level 19 supreme ruler. Actually, Qin Feng had some understanding. Clearly, the Chaos Great Cosmos had wanted to subdue the immemorial void Great Cosmos or merge with it from the very beginning. If not, the Tao ancestors of the primitive Great Universe could have swarmed over and suppressed the Tao ancestor of the immemorial void Great Universe. They could have killed him. The second thing was that the immemorial void great universe would be connected to the primitive great universe 300 years later. The boundary membrane would merge and the portal would be opened. However, before that, as the void of the two universes started to connect, there might be some spacetime cracks that allowed some experts below the Tao ancestor realm to enter and exit. Besides these two things, the two Buddhist ancestors also informed Qin Feng that they hoped Qin Feng would try his best to rope in some of the experts in this world to join the Buddhist sect. This was a battle that involved the destiny of the various great sections. For the experts below the Tao ancestor, luck was the guarantee of survival. For the Tao ancestors, although the amount of luck could not affect their safety, it affected the cultivation progress of many Tao ancestors. Under the emerald willow tree branches, Qin Feng's expression changed slightly. Since he could receive the news, the others, such as the half-step golden immortals of the heavenly courts, the demon race, the fiend sect, and the celestial sect of wonders, would also receive the news. It was foreseeable that there would be an undercurrent in the primordial void great cosmos once this matter was revealed. However, this was also an opportunity for him. As the 12th Buddha Lord of the Buddhist school, it was only right for him to establish his own faction. This was not only for the sake of luck, but also for the sake of self-preservation. At the very least, he didn't want to be like the Earth immortal Tao ancestor, who was all alone and was eventually killed by someone else. At this moment, could it be that Tao ancestor Empress Hua, or the many Tao ancestors of the celestial sect of wonders, wouldn't they have the same thoughts and target him? This matter still needs to be carefully planned. With a faint smile, Qin Feng looked in the direction of the fifth realm of the great cosmos. The fifth realm of the primordial void great cosmos was also known as the Buddha realm. The lord of the Buddha realm, Buddha ancestor Xuanzang, was also a Buddhist. Of course, the Xuanzang of the primordial void great cosmos was different from the merit Buddha lord of the primitive great cosmos. With a flash, he disappeared from where he was and flew straight toward the fifth heaven realm. The heaven realm was a vast area, much larger than the human realm. It was also filled with rich primordial chaotic vital qi and primordial spiritual qi. When heaven and earth were reopened, this place was still as primordial as before. Many primordial divine spirits and primordial divine spirits were still being nurtured. Some powerful existences had already been born and had begun to seek masters everywhere. In the heaven realm, apart from the 6 primordial kings, the strongest was undoubtedly the divine land sacred land established by the Chen family. It was where a great divine power who had created the primordial void great cosmos when heaven and earth had first been created lived. Divine land celestial master Chen Nan. This was Zhongzhou City, the place where many primordial divine spirits and primordial divine spirits yearned for. Most of them were primordial divine spirit. When primordial divine spirits were first born, they were only in the realm of ordinary immortals. They were ignorant and did not know how to cultivate. However, primordial divine spirits had an instinctive pursuit of great Tao. Among the primordial divine spirits, the strongest were undoubtedly the heaven-opening 4 spirit. They were the 4 primordial origin ancient gods formed by primordial earth, water, wind, and fire when the primordial void great cosmos was reopened. Apart from the 4 primordial origin divine spirits, there were the primordial divine spirits who were born from the strongest primordial divine spirits when the heavenly way was broken and everything evolved. However, there was no doubt that many primordial divine spirits and primordial divine spirits were excellent. There was no doubt that they were the future of the primordial void great cosmos. There were even a few Tao ancestors among these primordial divine spirits. Now, many primordial divine spirits had already been divided up by the experts of various realms. Among them, the heaven realm was the strongest and had 50%. Among the four innate spirits, earth, water, wind, and fire were the four innate divine spirit. Among them, the fire innate divine spirit was occupied by little Phoenix when she was reborn. Among the three innate divine spirits of earth, water, and wind, the innate earth divine spirit was devoured by Heavenly Lord Chun Nan's daughter, Yi. Yi was originally formed from the ancient earth stabilizing divine tree and was later refined into the Ho-Yi Bao. As for the innate origin source, it was devoured by Long-Er and refined into the innate azure dragon body. Long-Er originally had the body of the great ancient dragon emperor, but after obtaining the innate wind elemental origin, she returned to her innate azure dragon body. On the other hand, the innate water origin was devoured by the black tortoise armor. Xian, who was transformed from the black tortoise armor, was the son of Chun Nan and one of the seven souls of the seven absolute fairy, Zhan Taixian. Apart from the four innate origin divine spirits that had been devoured, the remaining portion was also occupied by the primordial gods. Most of them had recovered their memories and were now primordial gods. However, a large portion of them had naturally developed spiritual wisdom and entered Zhongzhou City. Apart from a portion of the primordial divine spirits that had entered Zhongzhou City, the rest were divided up by the second realm, the third realm, the fourth realm, and the fifth realm of Buddhism. There was also a portion that was taken in by the primordial gods as their disciples to inherit the legacy. Zhongzhou City was now one of the top divine lands in the primordial void great cosmos. It was not inferior to the ancient divine lands created by the six great kings. After Qin Feng received the message from the two Buddhas, Chun Nan, the seven absolute fairy, and the others who were comprehending the way of proving Tao in the primordial void great cosmos also received similar messages. Chapter 1439. Become a subsidiary universe of the primitive great cosmos and maintain most of its autonomy. 300 years later, the immemorial void great cosmos will be opened, and the two realms will officially establish the gate of two realms. Chun Nan and the seven absolute goddess were silent. Subsidiary universe was not a nice name. However, the conditions given were generous. However, the primitive great cosmos was far more powerful than they had imagined. However, a new expression appeared on Chun Nan's face. Although the six primordial kings had agreed to make the immemorial void great cosmos a subsidiary of the primitive great cosmos, they had obtained a lot of useful information. Firstly, there was information about cultivation. It turned out that there were many new realms above the Tao Ancestor realm. There was even the legendary Supreme Ruler, the Eternal Tao Ancestor. This shocked Chun Nan and the seven absolute goddess, who had almost reached the end of their cultivation path and had not been able to advance for hundreds of millions of years. Compared to this good news, making the immemorial void great cosmos a subsidiary of the primitive great cosmos was secondary. Thus, everyone understood the significance of the connate great Tao to avoid great cosmos. After receiving the news, Chun Nan and the seven absolute goddess looked at each other and immediately gathered all the primordial gods above Zhongzhou City, including the Demon Master Palace, the Western Dragon Tribe's Elder Tyrant, the Eastern Divine Dragon Tribe's Elder Purple Gold Divine Dragon Zifeng, Dragon Baby, and the four kings of the Third Realm. All the gods gathered in the huge Zhongzhou City. Tao Ancestor East Sea, who had just advanced, also rushed over. Seeing that all the gods were present, Chun Nan did not hide anything and directly told them the news. So, our immemorial void great cosmos is going to merge with the primitive great cosmos and become a new sect of the primitive great cosmos? The space-time god had a strange expression. I didn't expect the primitive great cosmos to be so powerful. There are 11 Tao ancestors in the Xian sect, 12 Tao ancestors in the Buddhist sect, and a few Tao ancestors in the Heavenly Court, Demon Sect, Witch Sect, Demon Sect, and Itinerant Cultivators. There is also the Eastern Dragon Tribe. The old tyrant's expression was a little strange. The Eastern Dragon Tribe and the Western Dragon Tribe were both dragons, but their talents and bloodlines were different. Currently, the Eastern and Western Dragon Tribes were on par with each other in the immemorial void great cosmos. The Eastern Dragon race had the purple-gold divine dragon Zifeng, the great virtuous great mighty heavenly dragon, the great ancient dragon emperor and the 5 innate dragon kings. However, the Western Dragon race was not weak either. Other than the old tyrant, there were 9 heavenly dragons and a dozen innate dragon kings. However, if the two universes merged, the 2 dragon clans would undoubtedly be attacked by the primordial Chaos Dragon Clan. The primordial Chaos Dragon Clan was not weak, and they had a Thunder Tao ancestor. And the innate Phoenix race. Little Phoenix and Eastern Phoenix had different expressions on their faces. When the immemorial void great universe was reorganized, the innate Phoenix tribe was born. The innate Phoenix tribe lived in the south of the Heaven Realm. The patriarchs were the Eastern Phoenix and Little Phoenix. There was also a group of innate Phoenixes and acquired 5-colored Phoenixes, such as Blue Luan, Fire Phoenix, Ice Phoenix, Swan, and so on. In the primeval great cosmos, the Phoenix race wasn't weak. The patriarch of the Phoenix race, Kong Xian, was a level 17 innate Buddha lord of the Buddhist sect. If the 2 great cosmoses merged, it was obvious that there would not be more than one Phoenix race. There would definitely be a master and a servant. On the other side, the Qilin and the Golden Rock King were also frowning. The Qilin race and the Golden Rock race also existed in the primeval great cosmos. However, the only thing worth rejoicing over was that there hadn't been a Tao ancestor-level patriarch in the primeval great cosmos. It seems like we have to strive for Tao integration as soon as possible and seize the initiative. Tao ancestor Dong Hai had a slightly different expression. He had already learned about the netherworld of the primitive universe from Chun Nan. The establishment of the true 6 paths of reincarnation was now on his agenda. If they waited until the 2 realms merged, Tao ancestor Hudu of the primeval great cosmos would obviously not have the opportunity to establish the netherworld reincarnation again. There was also Tao ancestor Dong Ji of the mystic sect, who had also merged with the innate great Tao of life and death. There was a natural great Tao competition between the 2. This made everyone vigilant, and gave rise to killing intent. We definitely have to seize the initiative. Within 300 years, we must begin to strive for Tao integration. We don't have much time left. The purple-gold divine dragon sighed softly. There was no lack of relief. Fortunately, we still have 300 years to prepare. An immemorial god also nodded and said, Tao integration will naturally be on the agenda. However, before that, we still have to eliminate some troubles. Killing intent flashed in Chun Nan's eyes. Chun Nan, you mean Guang Yuan and the other lost tribes of chaos? Tao ancestor Dong Hai's expression changed slightly. What, those lost tribes of chaos are making a comeback? The immemorial gods were slightly stunned. Then, their expressions changed drastically, and they all revealed killing intent. In the past, the lost tribes of chaos had helped the strongest heavenly Tao. They had enslaved the gods and treated all living beings in the world as ants. This kind of hatred had long been engraved in the bones of the immemorial gods, especially at this critical moment when the world was undergoing major changes. If the lost tribes of chaos were to join the great factions of the primeval great cosmos, there would be endless trouble in the future. 5th Realm, Buddhist Sacred Mountain. There was also a great thunderclap temple here. Buddhism also existed in the primeval void great cosmos. There was also a Buddha overseeing the great thunderclap temple. It was the Amitabha Tathagata. This Buddha also had another name in the mortal world. He was called Xuanzang. The Shaolin Temple of the Buddhist sacred ground in the 5th realm was also famous in the heavens. It was a famous cultivation sacred ground in the heavens. However, Compared to the Buddhism of the primeval great cosmos, the Buddhism of this realm was obviously inferior. There was also a lot of dark history. When Qin Feng arrived, he only felt that this realm was incomparably ancient. The land was vast and there were countless immortal mountains. The purple mist shone and it was unusually quiet. There were also many gods who had attained the Bodhisattva and Buddha enlightenment. The bell sounded like the evening drum and morning bell. It was peaceful. There was also a continuous Buddhist light shining on the rivers and mountains. It almost turned this place into a pure land of Buddhism that was not inferior to the Western Pure Land. Qin Feng's expression changed slightly. Among the 12 Buddha lords, Qin Feng had just attained Tao and his foundation was the most shallow. If he could conquer the 5th realm of Buddhism and establish a supreme Buddhist kingdom here, he might not be able to catch up with those ancient Buddha lords, but he would have a foundation in this realm. In a flash, Qin Feng appeared in front of the great Thunderclap Temple on Sacred Mountain. However, in the next moment, his eyes flickered. In the great Thunderclap Temple, countless Sanskrit chants sounded like heavenly music. A golden path flew out of the spiritual realm. In the golden light, Buddha Lord Xuanzang seemed to have known that he was coming. He led countless Buddhas to welcome him. Disciples, Xuanzang welcomes the arrival of the Green Lotus Buddha Lord. Amateus Buddha, you are too courteous. Holding the divine battle sword, Qin Feng put his palms together and smiled faintly. He glanced at Xuanzang. This Buddha Lord looked different from the Merit Buddha Lord, but their temperaments were quite similar. Disciple Huai Xing Huai Gu greets the Green Lotus Buddha Lord. At the same time, 2 elegant-looking monks walked out from the crowd of Buddhas. No, it shouldn't be called a monk. A monk and a layman, the 2 of them looked exactly the same. Both of them were extremely handsome and had a gentle temperament. Moreover, there was a vast and mighty clear sacred Bodhi Buddha aura revolving around them, exuding tranquility and mystery. This was the future Buddha and the future Buddha at his peak. Seeing the 2 future Buddhas, Qin Feng frowned. He knew that he had made a wasted trip today. Chapter 1440. Just as Qin Feng entered the 5th Buddha world, deep in the primal chaos, outside the primal chaos divine palace, 2 silhouettes appeared silently. Rumble! Extraterrestrials, how dare you! One of them waved his hands. In an instant, it seemed as if billions of voids were falling down. Several beams of blood light came crashing down like a sea of blood. Among the 2 figures, the little lotus boy sneered. He waved his finger, sending out a circle of light. It instantly shattered the boundless blood light and hit one of the figures. With a bang, the figure was smashed thousands of feet away. Wherever the figure passed, the primal chaos was shattered. Rumor has it that His Highness King Yuluo is one of the few kings of the primal chaos. He controls the boundless sea of blood and has killed countless ancient gods. Today I see that you're nothing. Kill. An ancient Tao voice appeared. An immortal divine light was emitted from one of the towering figures. One could see that his body was covered in black scales. There was a terrifying yellow demonic eye on his forehead. Under the brilliance, it seemed as if billions of lives and boundless space-time were being shattered. Insignificant skill, heaven and earth change. The little boy sneered. A beam of divine light swept across the many-eyed king's body. The latter's body disappeared in an instant. In the next moment, he seemed to have been imprisoned in a terrifying world. That world was filled with pure primal chaos, yin and yang energy that eroded everything. In just a moment, his body seemed to have been obliterated. No. Windrider King, Primal Chaos King, save me! The many-eyed king let out a terrified cry. The remaining Windrider King's expression changed. But then, he clenched his teeth. A divine wind that could split heaven and earth flew out from his hand. Under the black wind, it seemed as if billions of primal chaos were being obliterated. The little boy sneered. A ball of change appeared in his hand, turned into a heaven and earth gourd. In an instant, the black wind seemed to have met its nemesis and was completely swallowed by the gourd. His entire body was involuntarily swallowed by the gourd. At this moment, endless primal chaos divine light erupted from the center of the primal chaos divine palace. The Lotus Boy opened his eyes. There was a trace of fear in his eyes. The boundless universe and billions of lives seemed to be shattered in the primal chaos. Caught off guard, the Lotus Child's body only had time to transform into a ray of white light. In an instant it shook violently, as if millions of universes had shattered. Space-time ruptured and the universe collapsed. But a moment later, the huge white light formed the universe once again, turning into a 7- or 8-year-old Lotus Child. There was a faint trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. The Lotus Child's face flashed with a trace of anger and ferocity. White light appeared, and a small white circle appeared again. The circle trembled, and the surrounding chaos shook violently as if it would collapse at any moment. "All right, Neza, don't be unreasonable." At this moment, the green-robed man's faint voice sounded from the side. The Lotus Child clenched his teeth slightly and could only suppress his anger. He withdrew the universe ring in his hand that could shatter everything and stood quietly. "King of Chaos, an important guest has arrived. Could it be that you can't bear to go out and welcome him? Extraterrestrials, release the members of the forgotten tribes of Chaos and leave. You are not welcome here." The King of Chaos' true body walked out of the chaotic fog with King Yuluo. He looked like a person of light that was trapped in the chaotic aura. He was filled with an unparalleled domineering aura. King Yuluo was beside him. His face was as pale as blood. He stared at the short Lotus Child, as if he was about to devour him. Seeing the King of Chaos' expression, Neza's face turned cold. "King of Chaos, don't make a mistake. We're here to save you. Don't be ungrateful. You little brat, what right do you have to talk to me?" The King of Chaos' expression was cold. His eyes were like the vertical pupils of a snake. He stared at Neza with disdain and abnormally cold eyes. Neza was furious. The green-robed man smiled faintly. He pressed one hand on Neza's shoulder and looked at the King of Chaos. "Since your Highness is unwilling to talk to us, then let's go to Zhongzhou City in the Heaven Realm. I believe that young Master Chen Nan is more willing to talk to us." The King of Chaos' expression changed, and a fierce glint flashed across his eyes. However, he forcefully suppressed it. He was confident that he could suppress and kill the Lotus Child, but the green-robed man was too terrifying. He could feel that even Qing Tian from back then wasn't as threatening as the green-robed man. Neza and the green-robed man turned around and were about to leave this chaotic region. "Esteemed guests, please wait. Since the two of you are already here, why don't you rest in my Chaos Divine Palace for a while?" Neza and the green-robed man heard this and immediately turned around. The King of Chaos was already full of smiles. It was as if the cold killing intent from before was an illusion. Neza coldly snorted. Under the green-robed man's gaze, a white light flashed in his hand, and two broken bodies appeared. The many-eyed king and the Windrider King had already fainted. Half of their bodies had been completely refined. Seeing this, the King of Chaos' eyes flashed coldly. He grabbed the many-eyed king and the Windrider King and tossed them to King Yuluo, who was sweating profusely. "The two of you, please." After a while, everyone sat down in the Chaos Divine Palace. "How should I address the two of you?" Neza said, "I am Neza." Then, he pointed at the green-robed man with a proud look on his face. "This is my master, the East Pole Dao ancestor of the great desolate universe's Jade Pure Palace, Tai Zhenren." East Pole Dao ancestor? The King of Chaos' expression changed and his eyes narrowed. Then, his expression became calm. "So it's a Dao ancestor. Your presence brings light to the chaos divine palace. After a slight compliment, his gaze landed on the East Pole Tao ancestor. I wonder what East Pole Tao ancestor wants to discuss with the forgotten primal chaos? And what is the meaning of saving me, the King of Chaos? King of Chaos, don't play dumb. We know the relationship between the forgotten primal chaos and the primordial god. Do you think the primordial gods, led by the East Pole Tao ancestor, will allow the forgotten primal chaos to continue existing in this time of great change? Neza smiled coldly and ignored the King of Chaos's expression as he continued. You have no way out now, and I won't hide it from you. The war in outer space has already ended, and your primordial void cosmos is about to be incorporated into my great desolate universe. After the 6 primordial sovereigns head to the great desolate universe to sign the contract, they will soon return. Think about it, once the 6 primordial sovereigns return, what will happen to the forgotten primal chaos? You only have one choice now. The King of Chaos was silent. Neza looked at the King of Chaos. He couldn't deny that this person was terrifyingly powerful. Even he was inferior to him. However, it was also because of this that the Xian sect and the Demon Court had chosen the King of Chaos to be one of the chess pieces to deal with the East Sea Tao ancestor, Creation Tao ancestor. Chapter 1441. You dare to accept the forsaken tribe of Chaos? After a moment of silence, the King of Chaos looked up at Neza and the green-robed Taoist. Why not? Aren't you just the forsaken tribe of Chaos? Many great divines in the primitive universe are creatures born from the chaos. What's wrong with that? Neza sneered. The King of Chaos's eyes flickered. There were forsaken tribes of chaos in the primitive universe? If that was the case, he had a lot of ideas. If that's the case, what request do you have for the forsaken tribe of chaos? I believe that the great force you belong to won't do it without reason or out of kindness. The King of Chaos sneered. Request. The green-robed Taoist looked up slowly with a smile. Our request is to help the King of Chaos reach Tao unification in this primordial void universe. What? The King of Chaos suddenly looked up. In the 5th Buddha realm. Since Buddha Xuanzang has made his choice, I won't disturb you any further. However, we'll be fellow disciples in the future. If Buddha Xuanzang changes his mind in the future, the door of Green Lotus Peak will always be open for him. After saying that, Qin Feng glanced at Buddha Huai Xing, whose expression remained unchanged. Buddha Huai Gu's figure flashed and disappeared. However, Qin Feng didn't leave the 5th Buddha realm. Instead, he appeared in the east of the Buddha realm. He revealed himself in front of a spirit mountain. Qin Feng's expression was a little gloomy. Buddha Huai Xing and Buddha Huai Gu were Buddhist experts under the Guide Buddha. Clearly, the Guide Buddha had already made his move. The Guide Buddha was an 18th-level Khanate Buddha Lord. He was the founder of Buddhism in the primordial era. He guided thousands of Buddhas into Buddhism, so he was also known as the Guide Saint Master. Although Buddhism didn't flourish in the hands of this Buddha, he was still respectfully called the Master of all Buddhas by the 10,000 Buddhas and later Buddhas. Even the Khanate Nirvana Buddha Lord, who was known as the Mother of all Buddhas, called him Senior Brother. Qin Feng didn't want to go head-to-head with this Buddha Lord unless it was necessary. At the same time, as the 7th Tao ancestor of the primordial void universe, he could sense that many extraterrestrial Tao ancestors and Buddhas were exerting their influence on the primordial void universe. Snatch the providence, rope in the various major forces, and strengthen their wings. Qin Feng felt a little depressed. Although he had succeeded in the Tao integration, his foundation was still inferior to the primordial Tao ancestors, and Buddhist patriarchs. Falling behind in every way, their living space had been severely squeezed. In fact, there was another Buddha who was in the same situation as him. It was the Merit Buddha Lord. He was also a commander without an army. However, the Buddha Lord of Merit was slightly better than the Buddha Lord of Creation. At the very least, he had the help of Old Pig, Old Sand, Little White Dragon, and several other future Buddhas. However, Qin Feng wasn't discouraged. He had always believed that the heavens wouldn't help him. People had to help themselves. Ever since he was reborn, his luck had been negative. He had accumulated his luck bit by bit, gathering it step by step. Like a rolling snowball, he had gotten to where he was today not by lying in a corner and waiting for the heavens and earth to favor him, but by going against the heavens and seizing luck. Compete with men, compete with God, and compete with heaven. Qin Feng's eyes flickered. Although Xuanzang, the current Gautama Buddha, was in charge of the fifth world of Buddhism, Xuanzang had yet to attain Tao. His influence was not enough to cover all the Buddhist temples. A figure appeared in Qin Feng's mind. In the primordial era there was an ancient Buddhist figure. In the world of Buddhism, he was the only ancient figure whose influence was comparable to that of monk Xuanzang. That person was once as famous as the primordial Gautama Buddha. After the Gautama Buddha perished, he led the Buddhist sect and became the lord of all Buddhas. At that time, monk Xuanzang's Tao was still very shallow. Later, that person turned from Buddha to devil and tried to break through. After looking around, his figure flashed and flew away like a stream of light. Crossing the Zen sect. This was one of the few Buddhist sects that could compete with the Shaolin Temple and the Great Thunderclap Temple of the East. In this place, numerous green mountains gathered together. Inside the sacred land created by the multicolored light, the spirit roots gathered together and bathed in the divine light. There was not a single ordinary grass or tree. All of the spirit trees were surging with spirit energy and flashing with divine light. A dense Buddha aura circulated within it. From afar, Qin Feng, who was outside the crossing Zen sect, could see the vast golden Buddha light. This Buddha mountain was truly a treasured land filled with the essence of heaven and earth. The endless spiritual veins could be tens of thousands of miles. Countless Buddhist disciples built temples on the mountains, listened to the evening drum and morning bell, and chanted sutras to the purple sun and the setting sun. In the peaceful Buddhist land, plump red-crowned cranes flew among the auspicious clouds. From time to time, one could see spirit apes jumping between the towering mountains and lofty ridges. There were also 7-colored deer that would not be startled by humans and long-eared white rabbits that would appear in the mountains and temples. In such a treasure land, these animals had long since gained their own spiritual energy. Many of them were connate spiritual beasts. Those connate spiritual beasts were a kind of connate divine spirit. They had transformed into beasts, but their aptitude was extremely good. With a little cultivation, they could become immortals or gods. Qin Feng's figure was like the wind. He instantly appeared on the jade steps at the foot of the mountain, looking at the Buddhist temples with golden bricks and jade tiles on the green peak. Rumble! Heaven and earth sensed the arrival of the Tao ancestor, and immediately caused a boundless vision. Rolling purple energy extended from the horizon, and endless Sanskrit chants turned into heavenly flowers and golden lotuses sprouted from the ground. Such a huge vision immediately alarmed countless experts of the crossing the Zen sect. A few thin old monks with simple faces were the first to awaken from their meditation. A guest has come to visit. The energy is 7-colored, and the purple energy is vast and mighty for 30,000 miles. This is a sign of supremacy. Could it be that the primordial king has come in person? Seeing the mighty vision, the old monks were a little confused, but in the next moment they moved quickly. In the many temples of the crossing Zen sect, the bells rang 81 times. Soon, an old monk with a withered face walked out from the central Great Strength Hall, surrounded by many old monks. Amitabha, the Tao ancestor has come. The crossing the Zen sect has failed to welcome you. Please forgive us. The group of old monks of the crossing the Zen sect couldn't compare to the sacred land of the Shaolin Temple, where the great Thunderclap Temple was located. Although there were many experts, most of them were Heaven Realm experts. As for the heaven-defying realm, half-step golden immortal, there was only the old monk in the lead. He had a special appearance. His face was like tree bark, half withered and half flourishing. It was as if life and death, the perfect blend of Buddhist light and demonic energy. Ancient Demon Ching Chan or Ancient Buddha Ching Chan. At the entrance of the temple, a group of old monks walked out, surrounded by a group of young monks. When they saw the figure of the white-robed Taoist, they were first afraid, then respectful and reverent. The white-robed Taoist was mysterious, and the aura of the great Tao was like that of a Tao ancestor. But upon closer inspection, the eyes of the old monks in the lead became brighter and brighter, even brighter than the bald heads on top of their heads. They were so excited that they almost knelt down and called him ancestor. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.